Matt and Greg used to interview movie stars, but now they're doing a podcast.
Hey, they're right. We are doing a podcast, and this is it. Welcome.
Wow. That's a very good intro, Ant.
Oh, wow. I'm surprised.
You took me aback.
That song was right.
Yes. And that, by the way, that is a beautiful song. We have to mention Venice, right? That's a beautiful...
That is Venice.
Beautifully composed song.
Well, thank you. I wrote the words.
No, you didn't, did you?
I did. I wrote... Well, there's like one line.
Very good on that.
I sent that to them and said, put some music together. And they did. And yeah, it's great. It's catchy. It's exactly what we needed.
Yes.
So yeah, thank you, Venice. Welcome to episode 12. Today we are going to be talking about and listening to interviews from
Jumanji, which I am not invested too much on the show. And this is not a way to actually dissuade you from listening to it. I've never seen Jumanji, number one.
Oh.
Yeah, and I did not.
You know, sorry, guys, we're canceling the show.
Yes, no, just cancel me, Matt. Don't cancel the show.
I'll edit you out later.
Please, thank you. And also, I did not attend the junket. Sometimes you can attend the junket without seeing the movie.
True.
That's another thing that we can get to later in a future podcast episode.
Yeah, your questions tend not to be as good when you haven't seen the movie.
100% correct. But that being said, I think Jumanji, because Matt, you are more invested in this.
I love this movie.
Yes, and you also love the interviews that we're going to show.
Yeah, this was a fun junket, very memorable. Let's tell you about who's going to be on. It'll be Bonnie Hunt, David Alan Grier, director Joe Johnston, a 13-year-old Kirsten Dunst, and Robin Williams, the star.
Very cool.
The star of the movie, the star of our show, the star of our lives.
The star of our lives. I mean, that's not underestimating the whole thing. This is
we loved Robin.
Yes.
So much fun to talk to.
Very, very much fun to talk to. I've listened to a lot of tapes that I did not just for this podcast, but just from the 20 plus years I've been doing this. I've done it for, like, I actually did this about 10 to 12 years longer than you did,
So
Matt.
You started when you were 4.
I wish. I started in college, but the Robin Williams, I know, Matt, you're going to cover a lot of this stuff, but the Robin Williams stuff that you're going to cover is going to be really a huge highlight. It's one of my favorite ever interviews. So,
really, even counting the ones that you were at?
Even counting the ones that I was at, I will not really get into it because that'll be spoiling what you have to say, Matt. But
yeah,
it's very special
later.
stuff. Yeah, definitely set it up later. But listeners, you're going to have a really good value-added experience with this Jumanji episode.
Before we get to that, though, we do have Junket Talk, and this is actually a topic that I've been looking forward to. I think this is going to be a fun one.
Flowers?
No.
You
want to make another guess?
For Algernon? Flowers for Algernon. Just a little thing. I never promised you a rose garden?
No, flowers. You were right.
Sorry,
it's flowers for
Apollo 13
Algernon.
called
Okay, why don't you take this one? Why don't you tell the world about Flowers for Algernon?
Flowers for Algernon is the best flowery film ever, and please smell the roses and go see Flowers for Algernon. That's something.
That's a very good example of what we actually are going to talk about.
Which is quote whoring.
Quote whoring.
Is whoring a bad word, Matt?
Not in my family. It's a living.
It's a living. Quote whoring is, I don't know if it's cardinal sin in what we do, but it's...
I don't know if it's an actual term or just something that we've been calling it.
Yes.
But, I mean, how would you describe what quote whoring is?
Okay, quote whoring, folks, is, listeners, this used to be this was a rampant thing. It still is kind of today, but there was a lot more emphasis placed on it.
Occasionally, you'll still see it, but back then it was everywhere.
It was everywhere. When newspaper print was still huge, quote whoring was a big part of how people did business.
These were the quotes that would rave about the movie, and they would use them in the print ads, and they would use them in the TV ads. You know, anytime you would see like a TV commercial, there would be 3 or 4 quotes from different people saying, "This is a great movie, you should go see it," or, you know, whatever it was. That was actually kind of bland. But
No.
They'd be better than that. But
this was this partnership would be between the movie studios and the PR people. They would contact journalists like us, give us either. Okay, the worst part would be they'll either give us a bunch of quotes for us to actually sign off our name and affiliate with.
That didn't happen too often.
That did. It
happened sometimes.
It happened sometimes. I knew people who actually would sign off on that. They'd actually have some quotes chosen for them, and they'd put their name right next to that quote. Or I think the least offensive would be they take maybe a phrase from that journalist or reviewer's review and they'd put it into they'd turn that into a blurb. That was fine.
Well, that's what would happen eventually. What happened, and I mean, you would see like in the LA Times or the New York Times, every Sunday they would be advertising the following Friday's movies, and there would be these big 2-page spreads, and it would be filled with quotes. The problem for them was that all of the big outlets didn't do their movie reviews until the day that the movie opened. That's when it would be published.
Right, the week of, maybe a day before at the most.
So a week before, when they were doing these big ads, the reviews in the major publications hadn't been written yet. So they couldn't quote them yet. They could quote them in future weeks. But for their long leads on these ads, they couldn't go to the major sources, so they went to us. And we were the junket journalists. We would see these movies up to a month in advance. And oftentimes we were the only ones who had seen it. So they would be very desperate to get these quotes from us. And we would, the day after we saw the movie, we would start getting the phone calls. Can you please send us your quotes? And most of us did. Now, I didn't get quoted personally right away because I worked for a company called LEG Productions. And if you say Matt Levitz from LEG Productions, it sounds like maybe I was involved in making the movie, because of the word productions. It's not like maybe I did the sound, or,
right.
So I would send them quotes and they wouldn't use it. And it was actually the movie Operation Dumbo Drop.
Great, classic.
Oh, yes. Where I changed it up a little bit. I sent them a quote. And I said that my outlet was LEG Productions, syndicated radio. And boom, got used right away. I remember I was watching TV and the TV commercial came on and it was my quote and there was my name right next to it on the screen and my jaw dropped because it had never happened before. And so I wasn't expecting it to happen this time.
What was the quote?
The quote was, "Pound for pound, the biggest movie of the summer."
Folks, Operation Dumbo Drop, there's that elephant thing. It's an elephantine movie.
It was pound for pound the biggest movie of the summer.
At least you didn't say roller coaster ride, which is what everyone says.
There were a lot of cliches. We would hear Pure Magic, a must see all the time.
Oh, right. Pure Magic, a must see.
Now, for me personally, I would only give quotes to movies that I liked. I maintained a degree of integrity. And if I did like it, I would kind of lose my integrity and say corny things. But they would ask me all the time for movies that I didn't like, and I would refuse. There were many people in the group who didn't.
Yes.
And I don't want to name them.
Let's not do that.
But
Greg Srzyvosty?
No,
I never did that. I
were you ever quoted? I can't remember.
I was never quoted.
Okay.
I was never quoted.
I got quoted quite a lot. But the people who did it, even when they didn't like the movie, I had some conversations with them and I was curious why they would do it. And they had a really interesting take. What they said was that it's their job to help publicize the movie. That's what they're doing with these interviews. And they saw giving quotes as an extension of that. Like they are part of the publicity team.
Wow, that's a weird response. I would think maybe it would give more attention to their own outlet rather than being an extension.
That may have been happening too. That wasn't part of the answer they told me.
That is a weird, horrible answer actually to give you.
Really?
Yeah, it's just saying that if you're a journalist, you say, I'm just an extension of the PR
Well,
firm.
they didn't see themselves as journalists.
Oh.
Well, the stuff we did was kind of fluff. It wasn't about reporting news. It was about saying, hey, go see a movie. And they saw themselves as an extension of the publicity campaign.
All right.
And so putting quotes into their show was helping to promote a movie, and them saying, hey, this is great, go see it, in the ads, they kind of saw that as kind of the same thing.
Wow. Sad.
Well, I didn't do that.
You did not.
I understood their point. I just couldn't do it myself.
Give me another movie quote you did.
Well, I'll get to that in a minute. There were a couple of things I wanted to say first. One of these guys who would give bad quotes even if he hated the movie. I remember there was one time where he slept through a screening.
Right.
And the whole theater heard him snoring. And actually, he did this a few times. I don't even need to say his name, and you know who I'm talking about.
I don't.
So afterwards, I went up to him and I told him that his quote should be, "It's a dream come true." And he actually used it.
Wow. Very
did.
Interesting.
The ad appeared like a week later, and I was just cracking up going, I can't believe he did that. Now, you mentioned a few minutes ago that sometimes they would call us with the quote already written.
Right, or email people with a quote already written.
Yeah, I do remember one specific example of that, and it was the movie Armageddon. And their marketing team had come up with the quote. It was just one word, wow, and the O in the middle was going to be the planet Earth. And so they were just calling all the junketeers saying, will you put your name to wow? And I think my response was, only if you put parenthetically that it's sarcastic. But sure enough, the next week, there was the quote, and one of us had indeed put their name to it, and I'm not going to say who.
Okay.
But, you know, they would always get somebody to say yes. There wasn't necessarily a lot of integrity with everybody, but some of us did. I mean, some of us would only give quotes if we liked the movie. Now, do you remember the whole David Manning thing?
I do not. The name sounds familiar, though.
There was a scandal around the movie A Knight's Tale when it was discovered that Sony had been making up a quote whore. He was a fictitious quote whore. They called him David Manning. And it was the Sony publicity department who provided all of his quotes. And they had done that for a number of Sony movies. And in fact, I think that's how it got discovered, because you'd never heard of David Manning raving about any movie except for Sony.
Wow.
So
Never heard of this. My goodness.
yeah, so it was a big controversy. They were very embarrassed. It was, you know, it was kind of a big story for a little while. And my take on that was, why? They had us. They had people in the junket world who would put their name to quotes, who would tell them a movie was great if it wasn't great. Why would they need to make somebody up?
It reminds me of the end of Michael Clayton. You know, I'm not the guy you kill. I'm the guy you hire. You know, I'm the guy you're supposed to pay. You know, so it's wow. There was no use for that David Manning thing,
but it did happen.
Wow.
So
okay.
It's another little chapter in this saga. Now, I did go through my old stuff, and I found a whole bunch of faxes that I sent back in the day with my movie quotes. And Greg, I showed them to you. These are real. These are the actual faxes that I sent.
Yes. They're funny.
Some of these are pretty funny, so I want to go through this. Some of these are serious, and I don't actually remember which ones got used, except for a few instances. But so let's see. I found May 16th, 1997. I sent to Roz Stevenson over at Universal for The Lost World Jurassic Park, and I do think this one got used. I said, staggering in scope, The Lost World lives up to every expectation. For Air Force One, July 15th, 1996, I sent to Tammy Sandler a TriStar. And I loved this movie, so I wanted to give them a lot of choices. So I wrote a long one, and they did quote me, I do remember, but I don't remember which parts they used. You know, you'd give them like 10 sentences, and they would maybe use the second and the seventh sentence, or,
right.
you know, whatever. So I said, the most exciting, most intelligent thriller since Die Hard, brilliantly acted, brilliantly written, brilliantly directed, filmmaking at its best, etc. You know, it was all those kinds of ravey things that you would say. Now, around this time, I started putting jokes in there. The jokes never got used, but I'd like to think that I gave the publicists a smile. So I would give them a series of real quotes, and then the last one would be a joke. For example, March 19th, 1997, to Denise Stiers at Warner Brothers for the movie Murder at 1600. I said, the thinking man's action thriller, Murder at 1600, keeps you guessing until the very end. More twists and turns than the State of the Union address.
Very good.
Then for Men in Black, June 10th, 1996, to Tammy Sandler at TriStar, I gave them a perfect blend of horror and comedy. Smith and Jones are the best on-screen pairing since Gibson and Glover, which is probably not a quote you would say today. If you like the X-Files, you'll love Men in Black. Oh. And then finally, my joke one, the most fun you can have in a theater without Alanis Morissette.
That's funny.
In 1996, that joke was very timely.
Yes, I know what that refers to. We're a family show, folks.
Right. After a while, if I didn't like the movie, but they were really insistent, really pressuring me for quotes anyway, I would start to give them only joke quotes. And I have an example of that. October 7th, 1997, to Tammy Sandler at TriStar for I Know What You Did Last Summer. I gave them, it'll hook ya, a cut above the rest, and it'll slaughter the competition.
Very good. I like it'll hook ya.
They didn't use any of those.
Oh,
they would never use the joke ones, and I knew that. which is why I felt safe sending them even if I didn't like the movie, because it wasn't going to go anywhere. It was just a little joke between me and the publicist.
I know what you'll do this summer. Watch this movie.
That one they probably would have used. Another one where I only sent a joke was March 24th, 1997 to Arlene Ludwig at Disney. This was for the Marlon Wayans basketball comedy called The Sixth Man. I wrote, "It's like Orson Welles' The Third Man, only twice as funny."
That's my favorite quote of yours.
Now, this one, there's going to be a story here, but I'll set it up. It's April 16th, 1997. It was to Brina Jones at 20th Century Fox for the movie Volcano. I gave him, "It's hot." This one, which I still like to this day. "Volcano grabs you by the feet and slams you repeatedly into the wall."
That's so funny.
I like it. It never got used, but it tickles me. Now, what did get used was the quote that I gave them, "the first great action film of the year." And I sent this in April, so it was still pretty early in the year. The quote made sense. They used that quote on the DVD box.
Oh, very cool.
And it's still there to this day, and it makes no sense without the context of it being April of that year.
Oh, gosh.
So you could be looking at this on December 31st, and it's still going to say the first great action film of the year. I don't know why they put it on the DVD box.
That is hilarious.
But I can tell you I was very excited to get on the DVD box because many of our colleagues had already done that, and I was jealous.
Yeah.
And the one that I particularly remember was Leo Quinones getting his quote on the front of the box for the movie Booty Call.
Oh, very cool. I never knew that.
Anyway, the last one that I will share with you actually has a really great story to it. It was for the movie Speed 2 Cruise Control, which was not a good film.
Not even.
You'll agree with me on that.
Not even close, yeah.
Yeah. So when they asked me for a quote, I didn't want to give one. But they kept asking, and as I often did in those days, I went ahead and sent a joke quote. So the idea that I had was to make fun of other junketeers with over-the-top superlatives that a lot of them would give all the time. But I wanted to really exaggerate it and take it over the top and push it as far as I could push it and just put in as many cliches as I could think of. So I sent this one on June 10th, 1996 to Jan Kraft at 20th Century Fox. And the quote is, "Grab a hold of something that's bolted to the ground and hang on like your life depends on it. Speed 2 Cruise Control is a pulse-pounding, nail-biting, heart-stopping, jaw-dropping, edge-of-your-seat, must-see thrill ride."
And you submitted that.
I did. I thought it was hilarious. And if I remember right, Jan, the publicist, did too. We were friendly, and I think she called me shortly afterwards to say, "Very funny, smartass." And of course, the quote wasn't used. I checked the LA Times when they did their big 2-page spread, hoping to see it there so that my friends could get a big laugh out of it as well, but it wasn't there, which was fine. I didn't really think it was going to be. I mean, whatever. No harm, no foul. But that's not the end of the story. All right. Fast forward 16 or 17 years. I'm sitting on my computer and I decide to do a Google search on my own name just to see what comes up, as one does. You can probably guess, Greg, where this story is going. I found the quote, but get this, it was in German. I mean, my name was in English, and so was the name of the movie, but the quote was in German. I recognized it because some of the words were similar and all the commas and the hyphens were in the right places, but there was no doubt that that's what this was. So it turns out that after all these years that I've assumed that the joke quote hadn't been used, it actually had, just not in America.
That is so funny.
Here's my take on it, though, all right? I come from a Jewish family. Germany had the Holocaust, but I convinced a lot of Germans to go see Speed 2 Cruise Control. So I think we're even.
Wow.
So
that's hilarious.
That's quote whoring. That was part of our job.
That was huge for you. That was
Well, for all of us. This was a part of it. Every time we did a junket on the weekend, this is one of the things we would talk about who got quoted that day. It would come up all the time, or we would make fun of each other, or we would make fun of somebody who got quoted with something really stupid and maybe wasn't there that day, and we would all gossip about it.
Do you ever remember being quoted for Jumanji or submitting a quote for Jumanji?
I was quoted for Jumanji. I cannot remember what it was.
Okay.
It's not on the internet. I'd have to probably go through microfiche at the library to try to find it.
Exactly.
But I do remember this was a movie I liked a lot, and I was quoted. Anyway, so I think it's probably time to get to Jumanji. Now, a little tease, something, I think we mentioned this a little earlier, but something really memorable happened at the Robin Williams table, and I will tell you about that when we get to that interview later in the show. But first, we're going to start off with Bonnie Hunt.
Bonnie Hunt's really a pretty good interview. You actually get the feel from this interview about her own creativity as a writer and a producer and as an actress, and her work with Letterman in the on the show The Building and Bonnie, I believe.
Right.
I mean, so you get a little bit right at this point. Bonnie Hunt was really getting popular as not just as a character actress and comedian, but she was already entrenched in the business, but she was pretty much ahead of her time as far as spearheading her own TV shows. And sometimes from this interview, I'm wondering...
Well, because she didn't just star in them, she wrote them too.
Yeah. She was just so talented. There's also little teaser before we play this interview. There's a really good anecdote about just improvising and working with Jonathan Winters in a previous TV show she did called Davis Rules. So there's a lot of really cool Bonnie Hunt material about working in the business in this interview.
Sure. Now, most people probably think of her from her daytime talk show, which she did for a few years.
A couple years, yeah.
But she's also been in a lot of films, and do you want to take us through some of those?
Yeah,
Greg?
well, the big ones are Jumanji, and also she directed in 2000. It's a movie that actually has gained a lot of ground since its 2000 release, Return to Me, with Minnie Driver and David Duchovny. Bonnie Hunt directed that film. Also, she's known for her work in Jerry Maguire, some really cool scene-stealing moments. But yeah.
The Beethoven movies.
Yeah, the Beethoven movies.
About the giant St. Bernard. That was her and Charles Grodin.
Yes.
The two Cheaper by the Dozen movies, where she was married to Steve Martin.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of Pixar, of course, she's Sally from the Cars films.
Right.
And she's also Rosie, the Black Widow spider in A Bug's Life. And she's Dolly, the purple-haired doll in Toy Story 3 and 4. If you have young kids, she is Aunt Tilly on Sophia the First. You probably know her from that. I first noticed her when she played a White House tour guide in the Kevin Kline comedy Dave.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember?
Yes,
we're walking, we're stopping.
Yes, very good.
That was her.
Cool.
That was that became sort of a catchphrase in my family. I don't know, maybe yours too. Just kind of fun to say.
Yeah.
So she's done a lot of very quality stuff. She's consistently good, and she's always very funny. Now, I'm a big fan of Bonnie's, and this was the only time I ever interviewed her, so I look back pretty fondly on this one. Even though the Beatles question I was required to ask did kind of throw her for a loop, as you'll hear for a minute. She was not prepared for that question, and got a little awkward. Now, one of the first things that I say to her is, "Welcome to our crypt," and I want to explain that because it sounds a little weird out of context. It made sense at the time, but not so much now. The thing is, the rooms got very hot. You probably remember that, Greg, because we had to turn the air conditioning off because it made too much noise. We were radio and we needed it quiet. So the rooms would heat up and we'd sweat and get lightheaded, and it was harder to do our jobs. And of course, we couldn't open the window for the same reason. There was too much outside noise. So the only thing we could do to try to combat this was to keep the lights off so that the lights wouldn't generate any extra heat. My guess is that this junket was probably done in a windowless room. So keeping the lights off kept it kind of dark and creepy. So that's probably why I said welcome to our crypt. I do actually have a few more things here. This interview is about 10 minutes longer than the others, and the reason, as you're going to hear about 2 minutes in, is because they accidentally brought her in early. So there is a moment when the publicist asks us to stop and wait for the other rooms to get going at the same time, which was a pretty silly suggestion. I mean, we're not going to stop. We're already there, so why not just keep going? So this interview winds up being about 30 minutes, and all the rest of them are 20. As a final note here, Bonnie Hunt is very funny in this interview, but when you listen to it, it sounds like her jokes are falling flat because you don't hear a reaction from us. And you have to remember that we couldn't make any noise. If you laughed out loud, then the soundbite was ruined and then no one could use it. So we had to suppress it. We're going to talk a little bit more about that when we get to Robin Williams, but it does apply here too. So, just be aware of that.
So take all that silence into mind as you listen to the Bonnie Hunt interview.
Bonnie Hunt, here we go.
You want any more coffee?
Oh yeah, keep it coming. Please. I should say please, I'm sorry.
So welcome to our crypt.
Thanks. You guys all getting along?
Oh, yeah, actually. Remarkably well.
That's good.
This is a good group.
You never know.
All right, before we get going, I got something I have to get out of the way. We're doing a
3624.
Oh, what is it?
We'll be using that as
What's
well.
that in metric? What's that in metric?
We're doing it.
This goes international. So no.
We're doing a special on the Beatles reunion. Do you remember the first time you heard the Beatles, what the song was, what you thought?
I remember the Archies. The Beatles? Gosh, I can't remember. I remember I had a crush on a guy that was older than me, and he was a big Beatles fan, and he cut his hair into one of those Beatles hairdos. But I don't remember the song. Gosh, I Want to Hold Your Hand. I don't know. I'm not very helpful, am I? I wasn't a Beatles thing, It was like before me.
That's okay. I'm sure you've got lovely things to say about the movie. Do we have any more agenda questions before we go?
Actually, had you worked with effects like this?
What's wrong? Are you mad at me for my bad answer? I didn't know what to say. I don't remember. I mean, I know all the songs of the Beatles, but I would just be lying.
Have you been a fan?
You know what?
Yeah, I mean, they're good. I just,
You know what?
Well,
I made
what's going on?
I made a little error.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Is she in the wrong
Everybody
room?
was
I'm not Bonnie Hunt.
No, you're
Oh.
Bonnie Hunt.
Oh, we're not?
But wait a second, because I want everything to be synchronized.
Uh-oh.
What's going
So
on?
do we. Okay.
We can't start from the...
This is the Beatles interview.
Okay, you can do the Beatles interview.
But what can't we do?
Started? I thought everybody had started and we were catching up.
Oh,
So chat, just chat.
we'll just chat and
I don't
just pretend these
understand.
I don't
things.
understand either.
Well, this
No,
is fun.
because there's like 5 rooms. There's 5 rooms going on, so they don't want Bonnie to start. Then she'll be finished, and
But you won't be. We'll get
Well, my legs won't
you'll get
fall
more
off.
time with her. So
Yeah, but what harm is
And
that?
that's a good
This
thing.
is,
It's got to be synchronized.
personally, I don't care.
Okay.
this is
I don't care either. Let's talk. All right, go
This is
ahead.
how we want
Bonnie's
to work
here
with
to
out of effects, isn't
get
it?
Talk
started.
slowly.
Yes.
We'll get the
That's
sound
got to
effect.
be. That's got to be even, especially for comic purposes, where you don't have.
I
what's
just
gonna
think
be-
the Beatles never worked without special effects. All of a sudden, I get everything confused. What was the question?
Well, just the sense of working, especially with comic situations, working with effects that aren't there, so you have to be reacting to something that says somebody's going to dream up at a computer later. I mean, what kind of challenge is that?
You just kind of, an actor in a movie such as this one, you kind of just go by whatever the director tells you to do. A giant elephant's running across. And of course, working with Robin, there was always a shock expression on my face because I never knew what he was going to say.
That is something that, everybody who works with him just basically, you just go into what might be called the Cuisinart effect or something like that. You go into work with him and just, it's a crazy atmosphere. What, maybe he was throwing things at you from all over for the scenes. How about when the camera wasn't rolling?
The hijinks wacky.
Oh, yeah, we never stopped. I started at Second City, so I was always used to that type of work. That's my training, and I'm used to being on stage with 7 other actors, and I never know what they're going to say. And Robin was just like being with those 7 other actors. Only it was just Robin, and he was like 7 people most of the time. But I think there's a whole nother film here. If they just re-edited it a couple times, they could have the next 2 versions of it, sequel and then the 3rd one.
Well, that saves you extra.
Can I help you, sir?
Now that you mention it.
Anything you can think of specifically that when you saw the movie, you're just like, damn, that wasn't there.
Oh gosh, yeah, you do that all the time, especially with me and Robin. We did different versions of everything. But a movie like this, it's about getting to the next exciting moment and getting to the next special effect and keeping it moving. It's really not. You want it to have everything, but you know how it is. They go in and they've got to cut from here to get to there, and personally, you just go, oh gosh, but you have a whole different movie in your head when you're thinking of yourself. I had the girl who's really worried about her boyfriend trapped in the game movie in my head. I was like, where is she? I'm so worried about her. That's only from my mother's point of view.
Well, those scenes in the beginning where we first meet your character poke so much fun at kind of the new age pop psychiatry
Right.
and all of that. It was really humorous. What's your take on that whole movement that's going on?
Oh, I don't know. I always wonder what happened to just talking to the neighbor over the fence. Now you pay $50 to go into somebody's office and say what's on your mind. So I get a kick out of making fun of it. Although there's the other side of it that really helps people. You got to be politically correct. What am I going to say? I think therapy's a joke. Well, I think it's good for people. Yeah. But I think it's nice to if you can just talk to somebody, whether it's somebody on the bus or a friend of yours, it's the same thing.
Or a junket table.
or a junket table.
Bonnie, I really think that if there's anybody who could hold their own with Robin Williams, it's you. I think you are extremely funny, and I'm hoping that you will really get a chance to show that in more and more film roles. For starters, how was it when you watched the movie, do you feel, I know the movie isn't so much a character, it's not as much about the characters, but how did you feel about being on screen with Robin Williams and all the special effects? Did you feel that you were able to hold your own?
Oh, I had a great time. I mean, I don't know, I guess you guys would be the judge of that, but I think for Robin and myself, during the movie, we kept thinking, God, wouldn't it be great to do a movie where we didn't have the special effects and we could just go? Because we were having so much fun entertaining the crew that it was another movie in itself for us. So I just thought it was a challenge to work with them, but also something that's very comfortable for me, because I think for some actors it's harder to improvise, and for some of us it's harder to just take the lines the way they are and deliver them. I always end up doing a little something on everything I'm in, where I bring myself to it. So it was actually kind of easier being with Robin.
Do you recall a particular gem that came from something that was not written in the script, that just came out between you and whoever you might have been working with on the screen at the time?
I think the stuff where Robin and I are going around the couch and I say, no, your father, murdered you and chopped you up and put you, that was just us improvising. But, after he says to me he couldn't even hug me, I said, it's always the repressed types, they never know. And all that stuff's gone. But there's many moments like that in the movie that it would have been a different film if they went with that, I guess. I don't know. I watch the scenes and I think, oh, there they go. But you got to get to the next. You got to keep your audience. They test it a million times. They find out when the people are into it, and there's tons of stuff in there. But I can't remember what's in and what's not in. Do you know what I mean? Because I know the different versions of it. Maybe I'll think of something and it'll come to me.
What about the old warning about working with animals and kids, especially when you work with a kid who turns into an animal in the course of the movie?
Don't they all, though? Well, I did the Beethoven movies, which was a lot of fun. Of course, being in that dog suit 20 hours a day was not a picnic. But the key, I think working with kids, and we didn't really work with any animals. That was all put in afterwards. We never saw one animal in real life, ever.
I thought they used some animatronics. Wasn't the lion? You didn't have.
The lion was there. I was stopped by the set that day just to see it, but. Other than that, there was really nothing there for us to touch or to see. But the children, kids are great because they remind you of how. Well, if a kid can do it, you're not, you know what I mean? It's like all of a sudden you're at work and you're like, oh, I work so hard, it's so tough. And there's a 10-year-old doing the exact same thing. You're like, who am I kidding? I am so lucky to make money for this, and I really do nothing.
Is that part of being an actor, though, being able to be like a kid again, play? You're play acting when you're in front of the camera or on stage, and do you have to keep something of a kid of you alive to be successful?
Oh yeah, I think you have to kind of say I'm willing to make a fool of myself a little bit. It's terrifying to, every day I walk into a movie set or whatever, I always go, I can't do this. I just can't do it. I can't. Now I have to go in there and cry or whatever. And then you just do it. You just say, well, I'll just get through the day. And because in the back of your mind, you're always just like, I'm sure I have a job. I think most actors, if they had any struggle at all, I think there's a part of you that's always just like, every time I drive onto a studio lot, I always think, oh my God, I'm driving onto a studio lot, somewhere in my head. So it's always a thrill, and you get over it.
Then it's work.
I don't believe myself that you can learn to be funny. You can to a certain degree, but I think it's an innate thing, and you obviously are funny. So I'm curious as to where that first manifests itself when you were young. What did you do?
Looked in the mirror. I come from a big family, 7 kids, and what's wrong? Plane. I was doing a fake sneeze. No, there's 7 kids in our family. We always laughed. I was kind of a professional audience from the moment I was born. My brothers and sisters are all very funny, and my mother's and father young at heart. Their arguments were some of the most entertaining moments in the house. So, you find that funny, and it's just human nature that's making you laugh. They weren't really joke tellers. But, when they would start fighting, we'd be in the other room just doubled over laughing because my mother would do something like put something on the front lawn, like a pelican or something, one of those fake plastic. My dad would say, "What's that doing out there?" And she'd say, "Oh, well, Mr. Dayton put one on his lawn." And my dad would say, "Oh, okay." And then an hour later, she'd say, "What do you want with the pork chops, applesauce?" "I don't know, call Mr. Dayton. Maybe we should see what Mr. Dayton's having." So for 2 weeks, it would be that. You want to, should we go to Mass at 9 o'clock? Well, I don't know. What time are the Daytons going? Better not do anything till we check with the Daytons. He would know he was entertaining us, but he would never, let on.
So were you considered a class clown or in school? Or what were you like when you were going to school?
Yeah, I goofed around a lot. Good goofing around, I wasn't spray painting the walls or anything. But I was 6 out of 7 kids that all had the same nuns. So when I came along, they were just expecting, here comes another one, another version of it. But I don't think I ever lived up to as funny and entertaining as my brothers and sisters were. I was more of an audience, kind of shy. But in the back of the room, I might have one person I was entertaining.
Was that being the case, how did you end up as the one who was in showbiz and doing comedy specifically?
Would your family be surprised that you were the one that...
Yeah, definitely. But I think, I think in every family there's people that sacrifice, especially the older kids. All my older brothers and sisters did what was right and what was the sure thing, because we always struggled when we were kids, to make ends meet and everything else. And because I was one of the younger ones, I was, allowed to take a risk based on them being more stable. So I kind of cashed in on their personalities. But certainly this career is almost everybody's in my family, not only mine.
Do they see themselves in some of your characters and routines, and how do they respond to that?
Oh, they love it. I mean, we get a big kick out of it, because a lot of the stuff that I write, especially the things that I write on television, are based on people from our neighborhood and people that we knew, because you never really have to make up a character if you've observed life enough.
Talking about television, what kind of experience has that been? It sounds like you've gone through a lot, put a lot into it, and now you throw it out there and see what happens, and it's got to be frustrating.
Yeah, it is. Well, I'm speaking a different language in television today. I mean, I think the shows that I write are very story strong, and the characters have a lot of values and a lot of heart. Just because the shows I grew up when I was a kid, the Honeymooners and the Dick Van Dyke Show and the Andy Griffith Show, and the shows you can watch over and over and over again. The episode where Barney brings the girls back from Mount Pilot. I mean, you could see it 10 times, and my whole family, whether it was me at 10 years old or my dad at 50, we would all be entertained and laugh, and that's the kind of television that I love to write. But it certainly is lost, because you go in and they want, more formula, or, we all know what television is today, mostly the easiest jokes. I remember at Second City, the easiest laugh was always a sex joke or a drug joke, and we always knew when in doubt you could throw one of those out and you'd get a laugh. So it's interesting for me to be on television and see people get paid so much money to actually write the stuff that's the first thing that enters everybody's mind. And I think our show goes beyond the first thing that enters your mind and goes to what people are feeling. But, it makes your struggle a lot harder. But if I can't do it that way, then, I just won't do it. It's simple.
Well, what does that say about the network that sticks you at a lousy times? A lot gives you a few weeks and then says, well, not working.
I know, it was really devastating. It hurt a lot, because they went through so much to get me back. Because, if you remember, the same thing happened with my other series, The Building. It's almost like they want... We do our show so simply. The cast is all from the theater. We're all great pals. We do our show in an hour. Most sitcoms take 3.5 hours to shoot. We come in at 7, we're done by 8. We rehearse it like a play. I write it. I let the actors have input. If they don't like a line, I say what you want. I'll see it when it happens. And it leaves that spot. And they look at it almost as chaos instead of actual teamwork. The teamwork makes them lose their control. And I know the other shows, they're up till 4 o'clock in the morning just to write 4 more jokes in the script, and then they stay 3-4 hours shooting it, and we just kind of write our show, and we go home, and then we tape it, and then we look forward to next week. Our audience comes in and gets baseball hats and hot dogs and something to drink, and we really do it as a theater experience, and I think it just confuses them.
So is it on hiatus, or is it? What is the status of the show?
My question would be the same. I was about a week ago. I spoke to Les Moonves and said I'm really not interested in continuing to do the show on Friday nights, because I just feel like I'm writing a movie for an empty movie theater, and it's breaking my heart, because I love the show, and I'd like to start over again with the pilot and a good time slot like Monday or Wednesday. And he said, well, let me think about it, and I'll double the promotion, because I haven't had any promotion. The other shows that have gotten the exact same ratings and a much better time slot with 8 times the promotion, the sides of buses and posters and 10 spots a night. I haven't had any of that. Their numbers haven't been any better than mine, and they've had all the advantage. So he said, well, I'll double the promotion. And then 5 days later, I got a call, you're off the air, and we don't know when we're going to bring you back, but we haven't canceled you. And I said, well, this isn't a good phone call. They said, well, we didn't cancel you. And I said, oh, then why don't you? I mean, if you're never going to get it and you don't understand it now, you won't understand it later. And I have no problem with them canceling the show. In fact, I have a respect for it. If they say, listen, we don't like the show, we don't get it, it's not our cup of tea, goodbye, well, then that's the way it is. But so I'm hanging in there now. Hopefully Monday they're going to tell me what they're going to do with it. But it's such a great show. I mean, the actors are, the teamwork, the director, I mean, everybody is so, the prop man comes up with some of the best lines. Our set is so open. People, and Sam Denoff, who's a great writer, Dick Van Dyke and Andy Griffith and that girl, he stops by our set every week just because he said it's like being on the old show. And Sid Caesar's doing the show next week, which is, really great for me because that's the way I would have loved to have done television, the way they did it then.
Has there been any thought of taking it to like a cable, or would there be any benefit to get to do it?
I probably should have started on cable. I think that maybe they're just a little more open to letting you do. I always say to the network, and I've said to Les, I'm only asking for 20 minutes of your network time, and I'm certainly not going to do anything that's going to embarrass you. I'm going to do something that you can be really proud of. I don't know if it'll work. I don't know if it'll be a huge success, but at least give it that 100% push that we give everything else. And if you look at the history of the last 15 years of television, very seldom does a show become a hit because someone famous is in it. It's usually these little shows where it's a group of unknown people and it gets a little chance or a cozy time slot, like Cheers. Nobody knew anybody on that. And even Seinfeld. I mean, people knew Jerry, but it was just kind of like this little group of people that you believed were those people. So we'll see what happens.
But Jumanji is such a wonderful movie, and I haven't talked to one person who didn't like it, and it's going to do well, I'll tell you, and you are going to be probably getting the most recognition that you've gotten for any single movie role, in my opinion anyway. So, are you ready for that? Is that just a vehicle so that people will listen to you when you say, I want to do the TV show versus the movie versus,
For me, it wasn't even TV over film. It was just a chance to be a storyteller. I love that process and writing, and I would love to do it in films too, but I think there's steps. You have to be taken seriously, and the only time you're taken seriously is when something you do makes a lot of money. So I thought of television, they kind of know me and trust me in television, so to speak, as a writer, so I'll start there, and maybe that'll go on to something else. But as far as the movie changing things for me, I've been told for 8 years, tomorrow you will not be able to go in the grocery store because you are going to be so famous. And I have more groceries than you can imagine, just from that one warning. I was like, I better stock up because I would be so, Mom, better get some milk because I'm going to be so famous we can't even go to the store. I said, change your last name. You are going to have no privacy.
So how do you feel about that? Are you bothered by that, or will you not mind?
What, if it happens?
Yeah, if it happens.
I guess there's always, it's a mixed blessing. You think, boy, I'm so fortunate to have the success, but on the other hand, you worry about your family's safety or privacy or whatever, but no, I mean, whatever happens, it'll be all right, I guess.
And which groceries keep the longest?
The canned goods, dear. Always get the canned goods and keep the label forward in case something happens, you're in a hurry, you'll pull the wrong thing, and you're putting mushroom soup when it should be chicken.
So what's the game plan? In the worst case scenario, they don't bring the show back. Do you have other ideas on the back burner that you...
I wrote 2 other series, and I've written 2 films. And so far, because of most of the movies that I've been in as an actress, I've kind of gotten a reputation that I have a lot of input. I'll always think of lines or ideas or scenes for not only my character, but other people's characters, just for fun. I'll say, here, you can have this if you want it. So that's kind of gotten out there, and now people are calling me for rewrites and punch-up and on films, which would be great if I can get more into that as a writer. Because I think if my films got made, I could really have some nice stories put on film, which would be a dream. I mean, television's been nice, but a film you can really, develop a character and have that time to tell a great story. Where on television, they get so impatient.
What are some?
Could you raise your hand, please? No, go ahead. I'm just kidding.
What are some of the film story ideas that you have written, and what kind?
Are you kidding? What are you, a spy? They're just like my old neighborhood,
None
it's
of
just...
us are in the industry. Okay.
And by the industry, do you mean the business?
Just a couple log lines.
It won't leave this room.
Oh, please. No, they're just very. You've seen A Bronx Tale. You know, it's stuff. It's from my old neighborhood. It's stuff that I know. You know, it's nothing. Human nature. You know, that's what I write the best.
Do you enjoy writing more than acting, or is it an equal but different kind of a satisfaction you get from the two?
I'll tell you, the most important thing for this in this process for me is the teamwork. It's so great. I mean, you know, the Bonnie Hunt show is a perfect example of people, just a domino effect. I could not do that show without every single person there. And you're just, when I see these shows where they just replace people and every month you find out they've got new executive producers or the actors have been changed, I just think, how can they do that? Because I couldn't survive without these people that are so talented around me, making me look good and believing in me. You know, I mean, my director is just, John Boab is phenomenal. You know, he's always so open, and I say, oh, geez, I hate this scene. He says, well, let's change it, and it's 10 minutes before showtime. And he knows I'll write it. I mean, I wrote one, I think Heidi was in my dressing room one day, and I wrote it on the top of a shoebox. I rewrote it, and I kept waiting for somebody in the scene to say size 9. I was going to go, what the, you know, I was just waiting for one of the person who transcribed it to put the shoe size in there. But it worked, you know. We ended up shooting it, and it went along fine. And all the actors were like, what am I saying? I go, just remember to agree with me. They're like, okay. And we go, and we really do the show like live television. We don't do retakes. We go straight through. If there's a mistake, we leave it in. You know, the network just always goes, you shouldn't leave that in. I go, oh, but, you know, when you see The Honeymooners, there's that feeling that you're seeing it live, even though you've seen it a million times. Because they did it in front of an audience and they went straight through, it gives that fresh quality every time you see it, where most of the shows stop and redo and everything's perfect and set up, punchline. And our show, you really have to listen, but once the audience gets into it, they have the best time.
But that's an interesting difference, is you're demanding something of the audience, where most situation comedy and most episodic television just says, okay, we're gonna put the candy between your ears and you don't have to think about it. Check your brain at the door. Are you looking for a particular audience, or do you think that audiences really do want to be checked?
Oh, I think they do. I mean, one thing I learned at Second City, one of the most important things that we would put together would be the running order of the show. And if we had scenes that were kind of blatantly, you know, the old, you know, lowest common denominator funny, we never put them early in the show because then the audience would turn half their mind off. So we would start with the scenes that took a little more thought at the beginning and then save those for the end because we knew the other scenes would suffer if it would to be the reverse. And I know in shooting the show, when we're in front of the live audience, the first couple scenes I know they're kind of going, what is this? What's happening? I'm kind of just sometimes I think they think, are they doing a scene or are they just talking? And it takes them like a couple scenes, and all of a sudden, every moment you have, they are right with you, and you just go, gosh, they love it. So it is a risk, I mean, as far as, you know, being able to be a hit right away. But gosh, I would be so happy if it could work. You know, this is my second shot at trying to get it. I think it can work with the audience. I think it's just the network you have to get beyond, you know.
What's it like, you know, when you have your audience and they're with you, and then you're just trying not to break character, keeping the laughter in? Is that the toughest thing in the world in front of a crowd?
I always say to the actors, if you think it's funny, then laugh. You know, if you think it's fun. I mean, I worked with Jonathan Winters, and they used to come up to me all the time and say, you know, you can't be laughing. I said, listen, if my dad were funny like this, I would laugh. You know, and they said, well, you know, you're kind of breaking the scene. I said, that's ridiculous. I'm in the kitchen with my dad, and he's doing a half an hour on a toast bit, biting it into different animals. What am I going to do, just stand there and then do my next line? And I would always start laughing with Jonathan and then feed him. I would set him up constantly, you know. Oh, why is that, Dad? And you'd see the writers go, no, you know. But I loved it. I thought, I'm working with a legend. You hire him, let him go. And I should have known then that my struggle would be just the same, because they used to say to Jonathan, you missed the one prostate joke, you know. And he'd go, oh, Christ. You know, he'd walk away, and I'd think, oh my God, how can they, after he just did, you know, 5 minutes of brilliant improvisation, they'd say, you forgot the one joke, you know.
That's got to be when you have Sid working with Sid Caesar coming up. When you look at some of the kinescopes of your shows, some of the best, or the ones that stand out most, are the ones where they went
off book, yeah, where they just started to go. I mean, we had, the other night, one of the, I said to the guy in a scene, close my window, and he's in the apartment across the way. And I just said it at the end of the scene kind of as an actor joke, because we're up 3 floors and he's across the way. Well, the prop guys had piled all this stuff next to him, to his window, just in case he thought of an idea in the middle of a scene. Well, he has a piece of plywood back there, and he puts it across and climbs across, and the audience is screaming. And I had to run from backstage to see what was happening, because of course none of it was planned. And you hear and then they just went into, they had no idea whether it was supposed to be there or not, because it's equally entertaining, which is great. Because sometimes stuff is entertaining because they know it wasn't supposed to be there, which then you're not right what the meter is. But It was just so funny. And then after that scene, I went to this other guy who's supposed to tell me he's going to a coffee convention. And he says, I'm going to the Coffee Connection. And I said, the Connection? And he says, yeah. And I said, you're a member of the Connection, aren't you? And he says, not only that, I'm the president. And, you know, we went into this whole Hair Club for Men thing. And he said, I got my coffee from the Coffee Club for Men. And this whole scene came out that's completely in the show. And I am crying during it. But we're both laughing as the characters, making each other laugh. And, you know, that would have never been... I mean, I would have never written that. It just kind of happened. And it's so much fun to see it in the show. It really is, because you see people having a ball. They're just having a great time.
Well, what is the problem with network people? Because so often in doing interviews like this, we hear actors and show creators say the exact same thing you did, that I know the audience would get it, but I'm not getting the support. Those guys at the network, I don't know. I mean, are they in touch with what the general public tastes and interests really are?
Well, I think CBS is. It's doing very well. I'm being sarcastic. I don't know. You know, I just think, I mean, I said to Les Moonves about this show, I said, just think about your daughter when you're thinking about picking up the show, because at least I had Mary Tyler Moore to look up to as a character when I was a kid. But who do young girls have to look up to on television today that's a woman, that's that's successful but kind? There's not many kind characters on television. If they're kind, they're stupid. And, this show is full of kind people that happen to be intelligent. And, you think they'd appreciate the trouble that you go through to write those kind of characters. We'll see what happens.
Did you rip anything off from the Jumanji set? A little prop, anything?
I have Robin's shirt. He was asleep. It was hot out. He had no idea.
The only reason we're not laughing is that we're all radio people, so we have to... So.
No, I do have his shirt. I love it. In fact, when I saw the movie, I'm like, oh, the shirt.
And he was saying, where is that shirt?
He has no idea.
Well, they do that house over so many times, and by the time we get to the whole swamp kind of experience, and we're reading the press kit, there was days and days that you had to be in there with all that water.
I think we were 12 days in the water, and everybody was on antibiotics because they never changed the water. We were all in wetsuits, 10-hour days in that water. It was unbelievable. It was just like camp hell. It was just, the water was just really disgusting.
So we know it's an animatronic alligator, but for a minute there, did you kind of just look at that thing and go, God?
Yeah. I mean, I was, the water, when we went up those marble staircase and that water hit us, that was us and the water hit us. So we kind of got thrown back and then we had to swim. The swimming, you don't see a lot of it in the film, but we did tons of it for that scene, swimming from the alligator and making it over. And I slid down that table and put my feet on that crocodile's mouth. And I was terrified of everything, terrified of being on the chandelier and all that stuff. But there was a lot of water stuff that didn't stay in the film, but they did tons of it.
Esther Williams sort of thing?
Yeah, that was me. Me or Shelley Winters in the Poseidon Adventure, more likely.
No, Robert Shaw in Jaws.
That's right.
Last question. What was any scenes go wrong, stunts you had to do that you really wish maybe you'd...
Please, just having to move in that wetsuit was enough for... I felt like Benny Hill in that sketch where he had the whole leather outfit on. Do you remember that? He goes over to a girl's house and he sits down on a leather couch and he's dressed in leather and you can't hear anything he's saying because it's making so much noise. I'm sorry, I'm not a big Benny Hill fan, but that scene cracked me up. He's like, how you doing, Ed? He would sit down on the couch and he'd go, what? And all you hear is every time he moved. Oh, God.
You had a noisy wetsuit, then, is what you're saying.
Oh, well, I wouldn't call it. Sexy wetsuit. Help my career, will you?
Do you have another film coming up, too, that... we'll be seeing you soon?
I'm in Now and Then. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that little thing? I have a little cameo.
Did you keep the dress from that?
That swinging dress? No, I didn't.
We'll see it at Planet Hollywood.
It was edible. Oh, you'll see it at Planet Hollywood. Please, how about those pink tights? I was like, I had a soundtrack with me wherever I went in that outfit. Oh, my God.
And the garden hose scene is a classic.
Oh, thanks. We improvised that.
Really?
Yeah.
So next film, though, do you have another film besides?
I don't know. Getting Away with Murder, right? Jack Lemmon and Dan Aykroyd.
Tell me briefly your character. What you do.
I play a doctor in an emergency room that Dan Aykroyd falls in love with. I love you, Gail. It's Dan in a love scene. Oh, I love you, Gail. I'll be right back. The phone's ringing.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, you guys.
Are you hooked up at all? Or?
No, I've got it on.
You are
I
so
mean,
well.
Okay, well, we're back from the Bonnie Hunt interview. I have one postscript.
Go for it.
A little factoid regarding Bonnie Hunt.
Yep.
Along with her talk show host stuff and writing and producing and acting, she's also a lifelong Chicago Cubs fan. Chicago Cubs fan. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a big baseball fan. I don't know if you're a Chicago Cubs guy.
I am not.
Little factoid for you as you get into your stuff with Bonnie Hunt.
Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Bonnie talked about the status of her sitcom, which was called Bonnie. That's what she was doing at the time. And she said she was about to find out whether it was canceled. I wish I could tell you how that turned out, but the thing is, when I run a Google search on when was Bonnie canceled, I get a ton of stories about Bonnie Raitt canceling her tour with James Taylor because she's getting surgery.
When was that canceled?
Fairly recently. So, if any of you out there are holding tickets to that tour, I suggest you go back to wherever you purchased your tickets and go get yourself a refund.
All right, good.
As for Bonnie Hunt, though, all I can tell you is that that particular show only ran for 12 episodes, which is not a lot. So I'm guessing that the news was probably bad. Fortunately, she is a talented woman. She did land on her feet, and she's doing just fine. Unless she's holding tickets to go see James Taylor, in which case I guess she can't catch a break.
Very cool. And the Chicago Cubs won the World Series one year, so she was happy, definitely.
All right. Well, she had that too. She's got a lot of things going for her. She also mentioned that she had a couple of movie scripts written and ready to go. I can't say whether those specific ones have been produced.
I think one of them was a long-standing project that she alluded to during the interview, which would eventually become Return to Me.
Yes, Return to Me came out in 2000. You mentioned that, I think, before the interview with David Duchovny, Minnie Driver, and Carol O'Connor.
Okay.
So that's all I've got for Bonnie Hunt. You got anything more?
That's it. I think that was Carol O'Connor's last film. Another factoid.
Oh.
See, I threw that out there. I can throw a couple of factoids here and there.
Thank you for that.
No, thank you. Now we're off to our second interview of the episode, David Alan Grier.
Yes.
Who we all know from In Living Color.
He was great in that band.
Folks, that is an allusion to Living Color. If you were not a Gen X member like me and Matt, you would not know that song, Cult of Personality. That's a great song.
David Alan Grier was not in that band. I apologize. I'm putting out false information. In Living Color ran from 1990 to 2001. This Jumanji junket was in 1995. So the show was still on the air, and it was right in the middle of its run. Greg, what else has David Alan Grier done?
Well, I'll tell you what else he's done. About a year and a half ago, I interviewed him for the Carmichael Show, which ended its run. It was only on for about a couple of seasons on NBC, but he was back on the screen. He's basically known as a comic actor, starring in Blank Man and all that stuff.
And everyone still remembers him from In Living Color, so he's got that propelling him forward, I think, everywhere he goes.
But he's had a long-standing career.
Yeah, he hasn't really done anything where he's kind of in the spotlight. I don't think he's starred in anything in a while, but he keeps showing up.
Jumanji is considered one of his top movie credits.
Right.
And during the interview, listeners, as you listen, it's kind of a sad thing. You'll listen to his own creative journey with his TV series, The Preston Episodes. If The Preston Episodes was a long-running TV show, maybe his career would have gone a different way. But he talks about during the episodes the problems or the challenges of kind of being the guy with The Preston Episodes.
Okay.
So,
and if you don't remember who he played in Jumanji, by the way, he was the police officer Bentley.
Mm-hmm.
So, last thing I want to say, if you remember in the GoldenEye episode where we talked about how the Beatles question kind of split the group up, so that the combative interviewers avoided me and they sat in a different room, and then all the nice people, the more polite interviewers, sat with me at my table. You're going to hear some evidence of this, because about 7 minutes into the interview, Grier brings it up. He says, "You guys are so much nicer and more polite than the other room." So that's that was why. It's the Beatles question, folks. The positive side of it, the positive effects of the Beatles question.
I always like the Beatles question personally.
Well, we got some nicer rooms because of it, and this is one of them, and some really good interviews, including this one. How's that for a transition?
Oh, very good transition, which I screwed up. Sorry, folks. I screwed up that wonderful Matt Levitz transition. Here we go. Here is David Alan Grier.
I could put this on you. Sure. I'd appreciate it.
This is radio. It's not going to sound good when you say it.
I have a cold, so I should sound great.
Great.
I'm Kathy.
Hi, how are you?
I'm Andrew. I'll do an air handshake.
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
Right. Hello.
Alan.
Hey, how are you?
Nice to meet you.
Pass that.
Yeah, I'm good. Take it back one day.
We all in outbreak? Let's get going.
You know, we've all had bad cars, and
Yeah.
never one quite that raggedy though.
Yeah. Do you guys saw the movie? I assume. Right, but it didn't start out like that. It started out like a brand new police car, which I was very proud of. But then I think that the message is clear what they do to the one black man in the movie, as evidenced through what happens to his police car. So I think there's a very strong political message there.
And his shoes.
Yes, that's true. Right. The white socks were my idea, though. I was like, yes, exactly. Very good.
But of course, the monkeys
Very
weren't
good.
there. Now, what is
It's
about
true.
acting with something that's not?
Well, let me tell you, that day, it's one of those things you always hear. I used to watch The Tonight Show and everything and see these actors, complaining about acting to nothing there. This wasn't that bad. It wasn't like acting to just a blank blue screen. We got a lot of the effect was there, enough to act with. So, the police car was there. It was rigged. It drove away. You didn't actually see the monkeys, but everything else, the shotgun blast and all that. So that was good. It was pretty easy.
And then that scene where with a vine.
Yeah, well, even that one, there was half of a vine hooked around the police car, and it did drag it off the road. So again, there was I had more than enough to act to, but I didn't. You have to kind of imagine the rest.
So tell us about surfing down the street on a dog.
That was the nastiest. They heated the water, which is worse than cold. So it was 75 degrees, and you could hear the infection growing. So you got in there, and everybody was there 6 or 7 days, and you're just oh, what's gonna be on me when I get out? It was really, it's about 18 inches. It wasn't deep, but it was comfortable, but just wrong. It was just didn't feel healthy.
Well, Bonnie just told us that they actually got hit with the water coming down the stairs.
Yeah.
Were you and BB Newirth at the doorway?
No, those are stunt people. No, actually not. And that was at the beginning of the movie, so they're going, you read the script, and I'm like, I'm a lazy actor. I'm like, so what? I forgot. Big deal. Okay, this is the water today? Okay. And I forgot, that this was going to be a big deal. And then when I saw it the other night, I was like, whoa, yeah. No, we didn't get hit with the water, but they almost got trashed, I think, Bonnie and those guys. Because when I got there, I'd gone home for a week, and I came back, and they were all in the water, complaining and miserable. So I wasn't there. I missed that good part.
What drew you to the Jumanji script? I mean, give me your reaction the first time you read it.
Well, I got the role, first of all, and a paycheck, basically. No, actually, I'm going to be honest. It was a really good script, and it was successful in the sense that it's really hard to write something that's like E.T. or a fantasy movie that both adults and children can enjoy, which is what I think this movie is. I loved the script. I thought it was great. And that kind of movie, you either go one way or the other. It's too adult for children, or children won't enjoy it. It's not really exciting. It's something you've seen a million times before. But this, or a sketch, a Twilight Zone episode that won't hold up for 90 minutes. But this was really good, and I liked my role because it was, he is an African-American police officer, but we don't spend a lot of time commenting about his ethnicity or anything, which is cool. I mean, you don't have to do that in every film, As a black man, why are you in Brantford, brother?
But but it's also.
I'm I enjoyed not having
to explain it. The fact that things went wrong at the food factory.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of ended up doing something that everybody, thinks that.
And it really wasn't that bad. That's what I kept telling Joe. He's like, well, he is a policeman. I mean, it's not like I got totally skidded out, But my favorite scene is the Afro wig when I'm going, man, this is it. Air Jordans and guy got derailed. So it's pretty funny. I think it's pretty funny.
What about working with Robin Williams?
Don't mention his name to me.
Okay.
I tell you, that bastard was nothing but trouble. No, he was great. He was nice. He was a nice guy. I mean, you hear nice things about him, and he came on. I was a little nervous the first couple of scenes, and I never told him. So he would stop talking, and I was like, okay, could you get in the car, please? And I was like, he's a big, huge star. But it was fun. He was very giving, and we just had a lot of fun, man. He really, he let me go, but that, a lot of times, as an actor, especially as doing comedy, when someone says, go, man, be yourself, be you, be brilliantly funny, you're just like, my tanks are empty today. You know, there's like nothing here. Everybody's waiting for you to do something brilliant, and you're just like, oh, you know, can't I just read the script? So sometimes it puts pressure on you. You know, when you light a firecracker and it just fizzles out, you know. So, but he was good. He was a lot of fun.
His reputation for I'm sorry, I just want to follow up on that. His reputation for you never know what he's going to do next, but it doesn't matter what's on the script.
Yeah, but you know, a good actor is one that passes a baton. We feed each other. You have to listen. You know, so if I start in this area, you know, you can't totally turn left and go outside the scene. And he's a wonderful actor. You know, I mean, anybody's career to emulate. I would love to emulate his career after all is said and done. I mean, to go from Mork to Awakenings to, you know, this variety of roles that he has played, you know, The World According to Garp. There are very few actors who have ever been able to successfully cross those boundaries and do that wide range in roles. So he's really wonderful.
Are there any memories that you're going to take from the set that stand out that you can take?
Coldness, Cuban cigars. Those two. It was like Canada, so we bought all these Cuban cigars, and I was like, I had 500 of them in my, you know, hotel room. I'm smoking them like, now how do I get them across the border? You know, that stuff. I guess what memory is commiserating with Kirsten, who's 12, why she didn't get nominated for an Oscar. That's okay, little trooper. Hey, maybe next year. Hey, maybe for your 14th birthday you'll get an Oscar. I'm like, that's a memory. But she was nice.
In working,
you guys are so polite. Look at that. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry.
How was that?
Excuse me. I'm sorry. They're animals. They're bastards. You know, they don't. Those people don't know how to behave. You guys are much nicer.
In working with Robin, I'm wondering how they rigged that scene where you're driving the police car and you're all.
That was for real. I mean, the only thing is like, you know, all of our stuff was there. You know, my hand is all uncomfortable and all that. They do have it rigged so that we don't. Did we drive it? We did drive it. It wasn't towed. We did actually drive this car, you know. And you just stop. But the good thing is we were in a country road, so there was nothing to hit. But, you know, like you hit a ditch or something. But, yeah, we did actually drive the car, which I think you can tell. When it's on a trailer, you never really get that same feeling of, you know, it's too controlled.
You were talking about Robin's career and the different varieties that it has in it. You also do wonderful dramatic things. Are you going to do any more? Because you seem to be in comedy a lot.
Yeah, I would like to. I mean, that's an area I would really love to do. You know, when you look at, when I see films like The Hustler with Jackie Gleason, or is that The Cincinnati Kid? I think it was which one was the one we played? The Hustler. Paul Newman, Jackie Gleason. Jackie Gleason was so wonderful. And Requiem for a Heavyweight. He's so funny, and yet he was so wonderful as a dramatic actor. After it's all said and done, I mean, I'm 39. I feel like I'm still young, and this is my life, you know, so I don't really worry about today. I mean, people's memories are so fleeting, you know. In a few years, they'll stop asking about In Living Color, and it's just the last thing I did, you know. And so after it's all said and done, I will hope to have a body of work that goes in a lot of different areas, except for just, you know, gay movie reviewers, you know.
But it's a little frustrating. You know, Yale trained, Shakespearean background, a soldier's play, a lot of really serious dramatic work, and yet people say, hey, we got this funny role.
Right. No, I mean, because that's just in the last couple of years. You know, when I was doing Shakespeare and making $300 a week, and like my friends were making all this money doing comedy stuff, I was like, man, I could do that. I could do that too. I mean, maybe if I didn't have those things on my resume, I would be more frustrated. No, I feel pretty happy. I do want to do more dramatic work. I would love to get that kind of role that just tests you. You know, a mass murder. I guess everybody wants to do that. You know, Harry Connick Jr. in this film, I know how he got cast. Just in a casting session, whoever brought his name up, you know, first of all, they all fell out laughing, and they went, you have to cast him, Harry Connick Jr. as a serial killer. You know, he sings you to death. I'll sing some standards until your head explodes. You know, I mean, I think it's there. I'm not too frustrated yet.
And some of those scenes in Tales from the Hood.
All right.
I mean,
that was fun.
Yeah,
that was fun. Everybody's going, how can you do it? Beat your wife all day? And I was like, it was great. It was easy. Because I wanted to do it. It was so much fun. And also it was short. Maybe if it were like over a full, you know, 6 weeks of having to do that every day, But it was totally safe, and with the kids and Paula J., who is my wife, Paula J. Walker, they were never in danger, so it was good. It was cool.
What do you remember about your very first kiss?
It was in Boomerang. I mean, it was that. If you saw that movie when I was with Halle Berry on that first date when I kissed her goodnight, that was the most me that was in that movie. That was like my most horrible first date. When it was like, well, let's just kiss now and get it out of the way, and it was so awkward and horrible and terrible that was probably pretty much like that. Yeah.
I don't think he meant screen kiss.
I meant like kiss.
Well, I mean that I never kissed anyone before Halle Berry. That's what I was trying to tell you. Yeah, I don't remember. What is my first kiss? God, I don't remember. Some poor woman. I don't remember the actual person. I can remember my first sexual experience, but kiss, no.
Okay, there you go.
Well, my first illegitimate child. I will tell you about that, my friend. No.
So, David, what's going on with the show? Or is it coming back?
Right now, the network wants to, they've taken us off for November sweeps, and they want to retool the show and try a whole new approach to it and bring it back on sometime in the spring. So that's what we're doing right now. And,
So were you happy with the way the show was going, or are you...
Here's what I think, I think that they put us in an impossible situation, 8:30 Saturday, and it was a situation where you can't succeed. So if you don't succeed, then all of a sudden people start second-guessing something's wrong with the show. I like the show, and that's the nature of the beast. If we would have gotten great ratings, then no matter their reservations going in, all of a sudden they would have said, "Oh, it works," But anytime something does not perform up to expectation, then you start second guessing, and I think it's really dangerous because you start changing those things that worked and that were good because you're being dictated by ratings as opposed to what you think is a good show. So we're trying to look at it in a different light, but that's what I'm fighting with right now.
Well, I with that in mind, it never made sense to me that they paired your show with Martin because the shows are completely different, different audience.
Yeah. It never made sense to me either, but there's so much work in putting a show together and trying to put a quality program on that the last thing on earth, when they give you a time slot. I was just glad to be on the air, and I said, well, hopefully they will move us, and which they've decided to do, and we'll get a chance to find our way because we've shot 9 shows so far, and just now I feel like we're finding our where this show should be. It takes a pretty long time, Something like Living Color, it hit, and it was just right, and it just worked. But that's pretty rare,
So when they talk about retooling,
yeah,
I hope they're not talking about making it more like Martin.
No, that's not me. That's not what I would ever do. That's not the kind of show I want to do. We're trying to find out now. It's like we're talking about it right now. But yeah, they have some concerns about it, but it's not like that, no. Because that was one of the first things I told the network is to let me be me. If I try and do Martin, it's like trying to make Martin be Jerry Seinfeld. It's just not what he's about. It's not what I'm about, and you have to find that per each actor's strength and let them do that, and then they usually are wonderful.
So just to be clear, when they talk about wanting to retool the show, are there certain particular things that they say? Well,
I told them more love scenes, man. More women. So we're gonna talk about that. Actually, Pam Grier was on the show last week, and we thought we were related, so we keep having a kiss, and it was like, okay, no tongue, okay, because you may be my cousin. So it was pretty weird, but she was great. She was really great. She was really fun.
So what was it like working with Pam? She's this legendary blaxploitation film star.
But Pam is so together. Pam was like producing her own movies. She owns this 300-acre ranch in Colorado. She's healthy. She's survived. And as an actor, when I first started acting, the people I loved to hang out with were the old guys who would come to Yale and do like the regional theater, and they'd tell me about, being in the 1964 production of Hamlet on Broadway with Richard Burton, and they tell all these actor stories. So when Pam comes on, I would ask her all these questions about the 70s and all that, and she was telling me about Roger Corman and all those guys, and I loved it. She's great. She looks fabulous. She's, wonderful. She has not missed a beat in all these years, so. Yeah.
I hate to throw the burden of role model on anyone.
Yeah.
But I think you are, in the doors that you've helped open and the way you've gotten involved in various types of performances. You're showing another generation of African Americans that the doors are open to them. Are they? I mean, are things changing, and things like non-traditional casting, is that working? Can you go up for a role, any role, because you're right for it, or does it have to be a black role?
I hope so. I mean, that was one of the things in this movie. I mean, I love working with members of my own community, but also as an actor, I love variety. You know what I mean? I would be just as frustrated if every role I played was like action adventure, sex symbol guy, or all comedy roles, or all stage. I mean, I really love the variety and the challenge of taking on a different role. For young kids acting, I mean, my role models as an actor coming up were those actors that were doing that, as African American actors that were breaking the color lines and going in different areas. The kind of roles I want to play are roles you don't really see African American actors do. Like when Jeff Goldblum did The Fly, that was a brilliant acting job in an offbeat, weird movie, but you never see a black actor do that. I mean, I'd be much more interested in doing that kind of role than An Evening with Frederick Douglass and get nominated for an Oscar and, thank you, that kind of stuff. The Desmond Tutu story, which, I would much rather go in areas that you don't really see, actors of color going in. So in that sense, I guess I am a role model. It's cool. I mean, it doesn't feel that bad.
Do you have any holiday plans for Christmas, or can you remember your favorite Christmas?
Yeah. Well, my favorite Christmas was when I got this Evans bike, this red bike, and a race car set. And it was the last Christmas where it was still tied to Santa Claus. So as a kid, I was going, God, how did he get my brother and I, we got these new red bikes. And I was like, how did they get the bikes down the chimney? You could wheel it through the door. And it was like, wow, look at all this stuff. And it was like the living room was filled with toys, And it was that last Christmas where I was like totally enamored of the whole, Santa Claus thing. And my mother told me years ago, my father was up till 5 a.m. putting the bike together. He couldn't get the cars working, and I had no idea. That was the last really good Christmas.
What happened when you found out there was no Santa Claus?
It was depressing, Then it was like, he might as well order stuff. Mom, I would like the Gucci shoes and the Armani suit, please. 42 long. Yeah, I don't like Christmas now. I don't really like it anymore. It's just too much. It's like the build up to New Year's Eve. You cannot live up to the hype. So I kind of like de-Christmas my whole Christmas. I spent Christmas in Japan 2 years ago, where they give like Christmas cakes. They're into everything but the Christianity part. So they have like Japanese Santa Clauses, Christmas cakes, little elves, but there's no manger. So it was like Christmas light. So I like that. Yeah, I like that.
What about New Year's? Do you have any New Year's resolutions, or do you believe in that?
I try and stay away from those too, because it's just a build-up. It's like the Saturday Night Swindle. No, I don't say, I'm going to lose 20 pounds and become agnostic. No, I don't. No, just those little things. I try not to make any big pledges, I stopped doing that years ago.
When you're watching TV, do you have any favorite programs that you like to watch?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Kids in the Hall are the funniest people on TV. They're reruns. Myself and Rosie Perez. She was the only other person who backed me up when I was still in living color. Also, the Larry Sanders Show. I personally think that's shouldn't even be in the same category as the rest of these shows, because it's so wonderful and it's different. And I really like it. And you have no idea. You have no idea how hard it is to do something different. You have no idea the arguments I got in with the network just because the name of my show is the Preston Episodes. How they were convinced viewers would not watch it because of the name. And you just go, come on, man. It's like, but that's the way they are. It's impossible. It's not impossible, but it's very hard, to do anything different.
It sounds like you and Bonnie, I mean, she was just in here ahead of you.
Yeah.
Could start your own network, or
it's
should start your own
true.
network.
Well, Bonnie's crazier than I am. She writes all of her own scripts. I mean, she writes everything. She even blocks the camera. So she's really crazy. I'm just like loony compared to her.
But in television, can you expect what you're going after an audience, so you want them to think about what's going on. You're going for a story rather than just the quick
right
jokes. Is that too much to expect from a TV audience?
No, it's not too much to expect from a TV audience, but it's just hard to convince someone to let you do that. I mean, it's like this guy who originated Batman was asked, why do all superheroes wear tights? He said, it's a precedent that was set I can't stop it. And that's the same thing, like when just a name change, or why do I have to have a wacky neighbor? And they go, well, Mary Tyler Moore had one, I Love Lucy had one. I mean, they just this litany of shows. I'm like, well, I want to do something different. Do we need a laugh track? And those are no-nos. Those are big taboos. They will not budge. And so it's kind of hard breaking down the wall. But you chip away. Sometimes I let things.
Do you have anything that you're doing besides the show? Are you working on any films or anything?
No, believe me, there's no time. There's no time left. I barely have time to walk my dogs, my poor little dogs that barely get out. Yeah, no.
David, are you a Beatles fan?
I was, but you know what? I like the Beatles when they were like pop stars. When they stopped wearing matching clothes, I didn't like them anymore.
Do you remember the first time you heard the Beatles, what the song was, what you thought?
Yeah, as a kid growing up in Detroit, like I said, I'm 39, I often wonder, well, how did we know in first grade what time the Beatles would be on at Ed Sullivan? We knew everything about them. I mean, and what hotel they were staying in. I remember staying up and watching them on the Ed Sullivan Show and all that stuff, yeah. I actually got to meet Paul McCartney, but years later. But, that's about it. I know.
Thanks. I feel better.
Yeah, I feel much better today. I just have a little bit.
Yeah, because you gave it away.
Well, folks, we are back from David Alan Grier.
Hello again.
Hello. Oh, that's Matt.
Oh my God,
Hi,
Greg,
Matt.
when did you get here?
Yes. I have 0 postscripts on Mr. Grier.
I just have one. I want to point out that 7 years after this interview, in 2002, right after In Living Color ended, David Alan Grier wound up being one of the stars of the sitcom Life with Bonnie. So he and Bonnie Hunt must have gotten along well on this movie because she wound up casting him on her show.
I like how you connect threads, Matt Levitz.
Well, those were our first 2 interviews on our show. So see, they're together again
very
in history. On Matt and Greg used to interview movie stars.
Very cool, Matt. But now, the movie is directed by Joe Johnston. Now, here's the thing.
Yep.
He's not the director who... He doesn't direct a movie every year or every other year. He actually carefully chooses his projects. And you have a lot of really insightful stuff to say about Joe Johnston. I feel bad. I've never seen The Rocketeer. I'm sure you have too. But
I have.
And I love October Sky, another film of his. But what do you have for Mr. Johnston?
Well, before we get into him, I want to talk about kind of CG in general, because there is a lot of CG effects in this film. And Joe Johnston comes from a special effects background, as you're going to hear in this interview. Jumanji came out 2 years after Jurassic Park completely revolutionized the special effects industry. And this amount of CG in a film was still fairly new. But I would say that it holds up. I mean, the visual effects in Jumanji are kind of cartoonish, but they're supposed to be. That's the stylization, and it works. It's got a fun look. And stylization, by the way, is something that comes up in video games a lot, too. Every time a new generation of consoles comes out, all the talk in the media is about asking how much closer it is to being photorealistic, and they're all kind of missing the point. Photorealism is not the goal. The goal with each new generation of video games is to improve the technology to the point that it becomes better capable of fully realizing what's in your imagination. And if you're truly creative, then what you're imagining is not the real world, but it's a stylized version of the real world. And the same is true of Jumanji. Things do look a little distorted and exaggerated, but not because the technology was limited, but because that was the deliberate look of this film. And personally, I really like that. As I say, Joe Johnston is a special effects guy, so before becoming a director, he was a visual effects designer and art director on the original Star Wars trilogy, meaning A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. He was also the art director on Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he did visual effects on the original 1970s iteration of Battlestar Galactica. So the guy knows his stuff, and personally, I find it really interesting when he talks about special effects in this interview. Greg, you want to take us through some of the other films that Joe Johnston has directed?
I mean, he started off in 1989, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Right.
The aforementioned The Rocketeer came out in 1991. We're now at Jumanji in 1995. Several years after Jumanji, he directed probably my favorite of his, October Sky, with Jake Gyllenhaal. Very touching film.
Yeah, great movie. And they turned it into a musical, but it only played at the Old Globe in San Diego. It never moved to Broadway. You can find a few clips from it on YouTube, but it was just kind of a tryout run for like a month a couple of years ago. And I don't know, I didn't see it, so I don't know whether it was good or not, but maybe it'll have a new life. Maybe they're still working on it and they'll try it out again. But
did you intend to see it? Did you just miss it?
No, I just knew about it. And I had loved the movie, and I thought that's an interesting idea, a musical. I could see that. I could see that working. I don't know whether it does or not. Hopefully they'll bring that back again and we'll all get a chance to see it.
Yeah, that was a sleeper hit that introduced audiences to Jake Gyllenhaal. Several years later, he directed Jurassic Park 3 in 2001. I actually did the press junket several years later for Hidalgo, which starred Viggo Mortensen, directed by Joe Johnston, 2004. And then other credits include The Wolfman. I forgot who he replaced midstream during the production, during pre-production, I believe. So that came out in 2010. Obviously, his last couple of films was the 2011 release, which is probably his most popular film, Captain America, The First Avenger.
Right.
Obviously. And then after that, 3 years later, which is interesting, you were talking about his work in special effects and big budget tentpole films. He directed an indie film called Not Safe for Work, which is a workplace thriller.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, it didn't receive a really big theatrical release. That's just an odd... Maybe he just really wanted to actually... sit in the director's chair again and do another movie, but it had nothing to do with the special effects work. It's more of a workplace thriller, which is weird.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know if maybe Captain America was a bad experience that made him want to kind of walk away from that sort of thing again.
That is, because he never did the sequel because the Russo brothers took over, right?
Yeah.
That's so interesting insight there. But he was recently announced as the director for the upcoming film, The Chronicles of Narnia, The Silver Chair. So he's back into that tentpole filmmaking.
Right. They just keep making those Narnia films.
All those Narnia films. So that is Joe Johnston.
Yeah.
Very varied career.
So, and why don't we hear what the man has to say? Let him speak for himself now.
Here he is.
Joe Johnston.
I want you guys to know that this is harder than making a movie.
Well, then you better go into making movies.
But see, you're fortunate because this is the nice room. We're friendly folk.
We had 20 minutes. You had 20 days of that. You had 20 weeks of that, probably. That must have been.
I had 104 days.
Every day different, I bet.
Oh, yeah.
And all anybody wants to talk about is the water, right?
Well, I guess
There's so much more to it than that.
Could you sit a little closer to the mic just to...
Well, well, actually, one thing that the producers touched upon that I'd love to get you to speak on also is the balance this film strikes between all of the effects, action stuff, and what is actually a pretty intimate character story. And as the director, you have the responsibility of making sure that those two things sort of match up.
Yeah, I have seen effects films. I have seen the effects in effects films run away with the story. And the challenge for me on this one was to not let that happen. I mean, I think the effects are best when they help you tell the story. And that without a good story, the best effects in the world are not going to make a good film. Or at least not the kind of film that I wanted to make and that I think that, we all want to see.
My favorite scene in the movie was not even Robin Williams' scene. That he's usually the scene stealer, but it was when the kid went out, the wolf kid or the monkey kid went out with the axe. In the script, did that come up in the last moment? Or?
That came up in a meeting, like an all-night meeting with Jonathan Hensley, the writer, and because originally that sequence with the spiders involved ants. And the ants were like army ants, and they were eating their way toward Robin. He said, "Go get an axe, chop me out of the floor." And when the kid came back with the axe, he started chopping around Robin's head, and it was a slightly different sequence, but we knew that we needed a laugh in there because we'd had this, ever since the quicksand thing and the monsoon thing. There hadn't been, we were sort of. 4 minutes without a funny moment. Now what can we do? Well, this kid, he goes to find the axe. He finds one and starts chopping the door down. And it was a little bit of, is he becoming a monkey? And he just doesn't get it. And then suddenly he realizes it. But it was. I think Robin's in the next room. I can hear him through the walls.
In fact, is that part of the challenge of working with him, that he is on the wall or off the wall? So.
Well, Robin was very conscious during the production of this film that he had restrictions, and mostly self-imposed restrictions. because of the nature of the film and because it was so logistically complicated with all these effect sequences and stuff that had to happen in a certain way, because we had all these computer-generated animals that were doing things around him. He knew that he couldn't always just go wild. We had an agreement that he could do anything he wanted on the last take. And of course, the last take, it could be take 5 or it could be take 15 or it could be take 19. But he always got one take at the end where he could do anything he wanted. And he, more often than not, he knew that it was not going to be used. He said, look, just trust me. I know you're not going to use this. I just got to get it out of my system. And he'd do something that was completely wild. And we occasionally used some stuff from that.
Anything comes to mind that you used to
there's a lot of stuff. Let's see. Getting the sword, the whole thing where he takes, swings the sword and the scabbard comes off and hits the wall. That was just all, improv. What was there? A lot of stuff. Harvest Time. A lot of little touches here and there where he just sort of did it, and we decided later whether to use it or not.
What about the producers were saying that he was just kept everybody going between?
He really did. Robin is a great cheerleader. He really kept the energy up. I mean, it was a really difficult shoot. We were in Vancouver in the wintertime, and which is not the place to shoot a movie. That's supposed to take place in New Hampshire in the fall. But Robin was always there, and we forced his call all the time, and he was always there late, and the level of energy of this guy is just incredible. I was burned out long before he was.
How hard is it to have all that great footage and say, this is laugh out loud funny, but I'm not going to use it?
Well, some of the funny stuff was funny, but unbelievable. Some of the stuff he did was really great stuff, but you didn't always believe that his character would do it. And there was also a consciousness of pacing on the sequences that the rough cut was 2 hours long, which is not long for a first cut, and the movie is now 100 minutes, so we cut out about 20 minutes of stuff, and I didn't throw out anything that I thought was a great moment in the film. I mean, we kept those, but there was stuff that was funny, but it slowed the movie down. Stuff that had to go. So hey, the audience will never know what they're missing. That's a good thing.
Any plans to put that out on a Laserdisc or something?
I don't have any plans. I love it when you see outtakes on a Laserdisc. That's because it reminds me, and I'm coming at it from a completely different side, but it reminds me that this is a movie and that it's a craft and people are really up there acting, and it doesn't work, so you try something else. I mean, I really enjoy that kind of stuff. And there's unlimited footage on this show for something like that.
What is Robin cutoff ages for a kid to see?
6. I think so.
You would go as young as 6.
I think so. I mean, I've been in previews where there were 6-year-olds and even 5-year-olds, a few 4-year-olds, and I think 6, 7 is probably a good place to start. It's I think it's a little intense. There are scenes that are intense for little kids. There was a little kid who was sitting up front on the third row, and his dad was back in the middle of the theater somewhere, and as soon as the bat sequence came on, he ran back to sit on his dad's lap. He still wanted to watch the movie. He just wanted to be someplace where he felt safe. So there's a line that you cross. I think if you go too much younger than 6.
Robin had something interesting to say about that having the adults involved in the story puts the danger on them, and it makes it less frightening to the kids.
Mm-hmm. I think that's true. I think that also the adults in certain scenes take on the role of the kids. You know, in the scene right before the stampede, it's the adults who are acting like kids, and Judy and Peter are, you know, trying to say, "Hey, come on, let's finish the game," and they're looking at each other like, you know, these guys are behaving like 12-year-olds. I think it's that was fun for me to have Robin and Bonnie being the sort of arrested development, having the arrested development of these two adults who had such a traumatic experience in their life that part of them remained, part of them stayed, 12 years old. You know, Sarah's character she sort of went off into being a fortune teller because she had to put some kind of sense to this thing that had happened to her and had been running her life for 26 years. You know, this thing that she's been told never really happened. It was just, you made this up because what happened was so horrible. And Robin, who had to go into an alien world as a 12-year-old and basically raise himself. You know.
Well, along those lines, curious choice to make the one really menacing character that comes, or object that comes out of the land of Jumanji, be this father, the same actor playing Van Pelt as well as.
Was it clear to you that it was the same actor? Oops, don't want to take that off.
Well, he was familiar, even though his facial, the tooth and the different color hair.
It's interesting. We thought it would be very obvious that it was the same actor, and most preview audience members did not make the connection at all.
I asked Alan, I said, who is the actor who's playing the hunter? Because he seemed familiar, but I didn't know who he was.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, at the end, I hate to see the end of a movie go, oh, that was so-and-so playing, because then I don't enjoy it.
Right.
So there was a familiarity, but I didn't make the connection until later.
Yeah. Well, Van Pelt is the nightmare version of Alan Parrish's dad. It's like he is the he's the person who's chasing him and who's insulting him for not being who he should be, and which is we saw the same elements in Sam. It's like always pushing the kid to be somebody he didn't want to be.
So you're shooting this movie and everyone's doing their best, judging and whatever. There's nothing in front of them. As a director making this movie, how pleasing was it for you to see some of those sequences come from ILM, from an outside source? All of a sudden, there it is. It's all together. I mean, can you describe seeing it up there?
Well, I trust ILM a great deal, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to be at ILM. ILM had to be working on this almost from the very beginning. In fact, we had to shoot the Stampede first, the town Stampede, so they would be able to animate it in time to, for a December 15th release date. So they were working on that over a year. But I have a lot of faith in those guys, and I knew that I could concentrate on other things like getting performances out of actors. And while I was doing that, ILM was going to be over here making sure that the effects are being shot correctly, and and the CG stuff is being designed well. And they sent me stuff every day. They sent me stuff on tape and say, what about this? And so I was never worried about that. I mean, it's the great thing about a big movie like this is you can hire really talented people and delegate a lot of responsibility.
Well, of course, that's that company and their legacy is a big part of your history as well. And
I worked there when ILM was a really different place. When I was there, it was the effects were more the practical kind of. It was where you would build something and photograph it, and now things are built in the computer and they're never photographed at all. They're scanned onto film, and it's really a different world. They're still the best, and I think they always have been the best. But I don't understand the technology anymore. I mean, they can explain the principles to me, and yeah, I get it. But it's another world.
5 million monkey hairs. You have to, the lion, I guess, 5 million hairs, they said.
Yeah.
Meaning to bad hair day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really the challenging thing. And when we started Jumanji, they told me that they had not yet perfected the ability to do this, to make the lion's mane. And I said, well, you've got a year and a half. By the time we're done, you will know what you're doing, and you'll have the technique down. And they did. They did a lot of research on technique and animation for Jumanji while they were doing Casper, and they're going to use a lot of the Jumanji software on Dragonheart. So it's a constant. It's a research and development lab more than anything.
But talk about the concept of like the lion or the monkeys, because they are not quite real, but they're also not. They're not quite imaginary.
Yeah, they're recognizable as lions and monkeys and rhinos and zebras, but they are of a slightly heightened reality. I didn't want to go too fanciful with them, because I think that you cross a line where if something becomes a cartoon, it's no longer frightening. You have to keep it, from this world. The shark in Jaws is the best example of that. I mean, you believe it because you know that there are really sharks out there. I think that's the scariest movie creature
When there's
ever.
When there's this kind of money going into each frame, how does it affect you as an editor? I mean, if they've made the sequence, do you say to yourself, I can't take that out? Do you have to have it all storyboarded before you go?
It's not my money. No, you really have to. You really have to be tough. There are shots that we had animated that we had to cut out of the film. And the average cost of a CG shot is about $115,000. So it's tough. I mean, you can use the. It's amortized over several shots, but if you add it all up and divide it by the number of shots, that's about what it would cost you. So we have to be careful how we spend the money, but at the same time, you don't want a shot in the movie if it's slowing the sequence down, or if it's not doing exactly what you want to do. So I don't have a problem with that. I mean, it's the studio, wants to see every penny on the screen, and that's good. But you also have to make the movie that's right and that moves and that that works in the right places. And if this shot's not right, and lose it.
How do you function as a director? You seem pretty mellow here, and yet you're working with a Robin Williams and a Bonnie Hunt and all these things happening around you.
There's all those. The entire cast is so professional that I mean, I never had a problem at all with the cast. The problem, really, the hard thing was, and it's something that affected all of us, is that it's a long, grueling, logistically near impossible shoot, and that if we weren't all working together, there's no way we could have done it. I mean, there was no one who was detracting from everyone else's ability to make the film, and it was really a team effort. And that sounds like a commercial, but in this case, it's really true. I mean, it was, we just had to do it, had to work together.
That whirlwind at the end, that's got to be what you had in mind for Indiana Jones and the island sequence.
The Inn of Raiders.
Yeah, the Raiders.
Yeah, it's that taken to another level. That's an example of the old style of effects. I mean, the ghosts were they were sculpted heads with fabric attached in a tank of water, with a black rod coming at the top, and an animator up above, moving them around, and then you shoot 12 of those, and you composite it into a sort of a vortex. But everything about this was computer generated, and I think it's. I mean, I don't miss the old style of special effects because there is now nothing that these guys can't do. I mean, the limitation is your imagination and your budget now. You know, it's certainly there are no more technical limitations.
Favorite part of making the movie?
I would probably have to say working with the kids. There was a month at the beginning of the picture where it was basically Kirsten Dunst, Bradley Pierce, and the crew in the attic and in their rooms and in the house, moving into the house. And it was a slightly relaxed part of the production, schedule-wise. We stayed on schedule, stayed on budget. The kids were great. It was, it was just a joy working with both of them. And Kirsten is amazing. She's an amazing actress. She almost always knew what I was going to tell her to do before I said it, you know. And at times she would just say, "Don't say anything. I know what to do." I said, "Okay, well, prove it," and she did.
You know she hates wetsuits now.
I know she does. Well, everyone except Robin hates wetsuits. Robin had a good time in that monsoon. I mean, he would. I swear he preferred to be in the water than on dry land. I mean, he really wanted to be in there swimming around and with the crew in between setups. He had a great time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
What was the budget?
65.
The Jumanji narrative.
How many CGI shots are there?
There are about 140 total, compared to 54 in Jurassic Park. So it's about more than
Great movie. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Ha! Take that, Jurassic Park. I bet their face is red. Welcome back, everyone. That was Joe Johnston. Hope you guys liked it. I don't have any postscripts for this. Greg, do you?
I don't have too many postscripts. Actually,
do you have any?
I don't have any. I have 0.
Well, that descended quickly, didn't it?
I'm sorry. It descended.
You got me all excited saying I don't have many, but I thought, well, you might have a few.
I might
you
have
might
a
have
few.
some. And then you didn't. You let me down. You let our listeners down.
I'm sorry, listeners. I'm sorry,
You
Matt.
let the country down.
But you know what? I'm sure you have a postscript on Joe Johnston.
No, but I didn't say that I did.
Oh.
See the difference?
Do you have a prescript on Kirsten Dunst?
Yes.
Or Kirsten?
Kirsten. I do have some things to say about Kirsten, who was our next interview, which is probably why you brought her up.
Yes, I think so.
Joe Johnston just raved about Kirsten's professionalism, and clearly, with these early beginnings, both here and in Interview with the Vampire, which had come out the year before, they foreshadowed a pretty long and successful career, which is still continuing right now. And Greg is going to tell you all about it, aren't you, Greg?
Am I?
I hope so. That's your job. Do your job, man.
That's my job. Okay, well, Kirsten Dunst, I mean, obviously she's best known as a child actress. Her first chapter was the Interview with a Vampire. That was a big thing. But then, she kind of exploded onto the scene with that. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, who is this?" Yeah, and then Jumanji obviously cemented her as a go-to child actress. But I think the one thing that actually changed her career was, I don't say it was a widely seen movie, but a critically praised movie. In 1999, she starred in The Virgin Suicides, directed by Sofia Coppola.
Mm-hmm.
And then she starred in a whole bunch of other films. But then in 2000, she starred in a lot of these teen comedies like Bring It On, Get Over It. I remember Crazy Beautiful. I interviewed her for Crazy Beautiful back in 2001. But then another step forward was she was Mary Jane Watson in the first iteration of the Spider-Man films.
I actually have a Spider-Man question for you, Greg.
Oh,
okay.
I don't know the answer to that.
I haven't asked it yet.
Okay.
So here's the question. If you were hanging upside down to kiss Kirsten Dunst in the pouring rain, wouldn't you drown?
Emotionally, I would.
Not emotionally. I mean, the rain is going into your nose.
I know you're talking about that.
That scene never made any sense to me.
Yes. It was well shot, though.
It was.
Yes.
But I imagine he was holding his breath.
Yeah, you know what? My personal favorite from Kirsten Dunst was a 2005 film directed by Cameron Crowe, which a lot of people did not like, called Elizabethtown. She's also in Elizabethtown.
I remember that.
Lately, within the last 6-7 years, I mean, she's done a lot of critically acclaimed stuff like Melancholia. She was in that. She was in On the Road, an adaptation of the Jack Kerouac novel of the same name. She re-teamed with Sofia Coppola in 2013 with The Bling Ring.
Right.
I loved her in this other movie, this thriller with Oscar Isaac and Viggo Mortensen called The Two Faces of January, which was released in 2014.
You know, she's not afraid to go indie. She's not chasing the blockbusters. She's been in a few, but that's not really her priority. She's going for interesting roles, interesting projects.
Right. I mean, a couple of years back when she was in Hidden Figures, a very small supporting role, she was good in that one. And also she gained a lot of acclaim for her work as Peggy Blomquist in the TV series Fargo. So she's done a lot of really, I mean, again, she re-teamed with Sofia Coppola again in 2017 with The Beguiled. So she actually has a really varied career. But at this juncture, we're interviewing, I think, a 12-year-old. 13-year-old Kirsten Dunst.
She was born in 1982. So at this 1995 junket, she was 13 years old.
Amazing.
And she sounds like a 13-year-old. It's really fun to kind of go back in time and hear this woman that we've seen in so many films as a 13-year-old girl.
Anything else before we get to Kirsten?
I have nothing else, so why don't we do it?
Yes, here is Kirsten Dunst.
Hi, that's Matt. Can I put this on you? Well, just there might get a little cold.
Ooh, God, it is cold.
It's like this doctor's stethoscope they keep in the refrigerator between.
Yeah, right. Why do they do that? That's like torture.
This is gonna be a little
Thanks.
Welcome.
Were you allowed to keep your wetsuits?
You know what? I don't want to keep them. They gave me such a rash. I had to put cream on every part of my body before I put on that stupid wetsuit. I hated it. I hate it so much. You got so many wedgies. It was unbelievable. It was so itchy. All my arms were red and everything. They had to cut off my arms and the leg parts to it because I was so itchy and red. And the water was like 10 feet high, and there's like old candy bars at the bottom, and they'd float in food to us, and there'd be crumbs all floating on top of the water. It was so disgusting, and like it'd be freezing cold, the water. And then like all the stunts in the water we have to do by ourselves, like on the chandeliers and stuff, we'd have to do that. And you know when all that water crashes down on top of us? We'd have to do that too. I had to go back like that. So, and it was so scary because we were on marble steps too, so I was always afraid that we'd hit our head.
How many times did you do that with the water coming down the steps?
A couple times, like 5 times.
Boy, you definitely do a lot more than just act these days.
I know, really, physical.
Yeah, junior life-saving training there to do a role. And had you read the book? Had you read Jumanji?
Yes, I have. A couple times.
Before
yeah.
the script.
Before time. Yeah, like once or twice.
So what did you think about the change that it made from that rather simple, very imaginative book to this very complex?
Oh, I think the story is. I mean, the film is so great. I mean, I couldn't believe, from the book. It's so simple, and the thing, they've added so many characters and everything. I love it.
Can you describe watching a movie with a bunch of people your age? I kind of saw you in the screening, and you were around a bunch of a whole section of kids. What was that whole night like for you?
Well, it was really funny because I thought that the movie was kind of like gonna be, more for younger age, like for 8-year-olds or 9-year-olds, and their families. But I think everyone will love this movie. I think this is a really good movie. It's not just for one age group. I think it's for everyone. I think it's gonna really do good.
Well, I think everybody here at this table loved it, and we're certainly older than 12 and 13, so you're going to
physically,
appealing to a lot of people. And the reviews so far have been great. Sorry, the mic's really hard for you. Sit up straight.
I know my mom's like, sit up straight, and then I don't squint, and oh God, just a pain.
But if it does as well as it seems to,
closer, maybe that would
get that in your back. If it does as well as what the reaction has been, you're going to be in yet another huge movie. And I'm curious what that's been like. You got a lot of recognition for Interview with the Vampire now. It's just getting better. Is that tough? Is that hard? Is it fun?
It's so much fun. I'm so happy. And it's exciting too when each movie comes out. Like I always get these headaches too. My brain tightens up. It's such a pain though. Last night I had to leave early from the party because my head hurt so bad. But it's so exciting.
You're making some noise down there.
Oh yeah.
Beware of that.
Yeah, I can.
My arm keeps banging into it.
Don't touch anything.
I'll put my hands there.
Hands on the table.
Hands behind your back.
Sit straight.
Don't squint. Sit straight. Wear your sunglasses, Kirsten. You're not wearing your retainer. all I get all day.
See, so it's not all about being a big star, right? You still gotta wear your retainer.
Oh yeah.
The important thing is that you've got a day of press without one single person asking you what it's like kissing Brad Pitt.
Oh, you don't know.
I do.
Actually, they did. One person asked me. I'm sorry.
Well, you don't get to kiss him, but you do get to work with Robin Williams a lot.
Oh yeah, he's so nice. Oh God, he's so great. It's like as soon as you walk into the room, you know that he's there because he's got such a great energy about him.
We have also heard, though, that he doesn't always stick to the script, that you never know.
Oh no, it's hard sometimes though, but as long as you know the script and what's going on to the scene and what you have to get to for the next scene, you know what's going on and you know how to do it well.
But you do have to think on your feet with him probably more so than the average person
Oh yeah,
you worked with.
Definitely.
So did you feel that you were able to do that? Did it take a
Oh,
while?
definitely. No, I got used to it right away.
And what about working with your other co-stars?
Oh, I loved Bonnie. Every single day I'd go to her trailer and we'd watch all old movies like Viva Las Vegas and Bye Bye Birdie and Music Man and stuff.
What memories will you take from this whole experience?
What memories? Oh God, the water scene. Oh, I never forget that thing. I know that thing so well. Oh, I hated that thing. But yeah, it's really hard too. When we would like look at things that weren't there and we'd have to stare at a piece of tape, and it's so neat to see that like the monkey's really there and everything. Especially their faces are so neat too.
How about that lion?
That is neat. Oh my God, I didn't even know that. I mean, we didn't even know how the lion looked. It was neat.
So what's the trick to doing that? I mean, do you have to really speak?
Just use your imagination. Just close your eyes and think about how you'd picture it, and then open your eyes and pretend it's there.
Does acting come easy for you?
Acting, you can do so much with it. It could be easy or it can be hard, But, even the simplest lines, it could be hard because you could do so much with it. But I don't think acting isn't that easy. I mean, you want to know why it's so hard? It's because that's the way you act. Well, I mean, you have to. Acting is acting normal, I mean, not really, but it's like you use the things that you've used in certain circumstances that you've been under and stuff and use that, but it's so hard to think about it because people think acting is like, like say you have, I lost my bike. Oh my God, I lost my bike. But if you relate to that, you can really think about, how would you act if, that really happened to you.
Do you have anything from the movie itself? I mean, it's way after the production. I'm not going to say anything. What do you have now? That maybe is a dress. Bonnie took Robin's shirt from the set.
She did?
Yeah. Is there anything that you have?
I have a drum. I have a Jumanji drum, and what else do I have? Oh, there's crystals on the chandeliers, and I took some of the crystals and stuff like that. And I'm trying to think what else I took. I took some clothes, I think, too.
What about the game?
No, they wouldn't give that out.
I wonder if you had that game and then after your friends see this movie, you say, hey, let's play the game.
Oh, God. Yeah, right. Why don't you just play by yourself?
Do you think if you had been, say, hypothetically in the situation your character's in, would you have wanted to play this thing, or would you have been too afraid?
You know what? I mean, games these days, you just think of like Candyland or something like that. And when you see it, it's just like, oh, look, it's an extra cool looking game. So you just start to play it. And when you see all these things come out of it, it's like really weird. So personally, if I saw, that thing, like if the mosquitoes come, I just close it up and throw it in and burn it or something. I mean, but you have to continue it, otherwise, the mosquitoes won't ever go away. But then I said, why don't you just shoot them, Shoot them and throw the game board in the fire.
Well, most people have some kind of a creature that they're scared of. We were talking earlier about how...
Oh, snakes and spiders. Oh, that's for me. Oh, I hate snakes and spiders. Oh, God, I hate spiders. Every night I, pray to God that a tarantula won't crawl into my bed and bite me. Oh, I hate spiders. And snakes, there are, snakes in our area. I think rattlesnakes and stuff, and I heard some people have seen some. And I'm like, oh, I'm so scared. Oh, I can't stand it. Every time I, walk down the street, I'm like, no rattlesnake, no rattlesnake. And so that's kind of creepy.
So those spiders weren't really there then? They didn't have little spiders?
Oh, yeah, they did. Those were actually huge animatronics, and all the ADs would be working one of the, it's like a remote control car, you'd be working, we'd be working a spider, and actually they made the biggest noise over there. And in the movie it was just like, and it made the biggest noise in the world, the spiders.
But can you tell some kids what ADs are in case they don't know?
What?
An AD is on the set.
Oh, an AD is like assistant director, and they like carry around those little walkie-talkie things and like tell you where to be and everything.
Was that tough to become at home on a set? I mean, when you just use an expression like AD very casually, or the different aspects of making a film, you've had to learn that as well as.
You know, once you've been on a set once, you know what everything else is anyway. And it's nice, too, when you go on a set, and especially, you know, it's so long, like, as Jumanji, and you start to know everyone. It's like being with your family, you know?
What about when you go home, though? I mean, do your friends treat you any different? Because
Oh, no, they don't treat me different at all. Mm-mm.
You must get recognized, though, by a lot of people when you're out and about.
Yeah, sometimes. You know, it's really weird, though. I get the most recognition from Vampire, and I wouldn't think that would happen because I don't really look like Claudia, but they always go, oh, that's the vampire chick.
Did people ever come up to you and... I mean, I'm curious, with that film, it's interesting because the other movies you've done are this is a good example. Jumanji is the kind of role that we would think kid actors would get. Vampires way left to what
I know. I was so lucky to get that, though, because that's like, I mean, even older women actors would love that role, and I was so lucky to get that because it was such a challenging role, and I could, you know, show what I could do, you know.
I tell you, actors would kill for a part.
What are people like when they recognize you, though?
Oh, well... They're really nice to me usually, and they're like, oh, can I get your autograph? And it was really funny. We were just for the New Orleans party, Anne Rice's party, and we were there, and a lot of people recognized me, and they go, you know what, you look like a lot like Kirsten Dunst. And I go, oh, yeah, a lot of people say that. And then they go, can I take your picture? I go, sure, because they don't think it's me. They just want to take my picture because they think it's me, you know. But
what kind of music do you have blaring out of your trailer on the set? What CDs do you have?
Actually, right now I have Tu Wong Fu, the CD. It's a really cute CD. And I have Hootie and the Blowfish, and Alanis Morissette, and Live, and Rolling Stones, and TLC. But you know what? I'm so sick of the Waterfall song now. I mean, I used to love it. I know the whole song. I know the rap part and everything. But now I'm so sick of it. It's so unbelievable.
The rap, go ahead.
Oh, God. I can't believe you guys are going to do that. Oh, God. You really want me to do that? Oh, God. Okay, well, I can't do it as good as they did. Okay, I see a rainbow yesterday, but too many storms have come and gone, leaving a trace of not one God-given ray. Is it because my life is 10 shades of gray? I pray I'll tend and fade away, seldom praise him for the sunny days. And like his promise is true, only my faith can undo the many chances I blew to bring my life to a new clear blue and unconditional skies have dried the tears from my eyes, no more lonely cries. My only bleeding hope is for the folk who can't cope with such an enduring pain that it keeps them in the pouring rain. Who's to blame for tooting cane into your own vein? What a shame, you shoot name for someone else's brain. You claim the insane and name this day and time for fall and pray to crime and say the system got you victim to your own mind. Dreams are hopeless aspirations and hopeless coming true. Believe in yourself, the rest is up to me and you. But that's after listening to the song like 5 million times. I can't stand it any longer.
So is this...
You're in the house, girl. You're in the house.
God.
Any aspirations to do that?
What?
Music career?
You know what? I don't like rap as much, but, you know, I like that rap. I love Coolio's song, Gangster's Paradise, but, you know, I like that rap. Like, I only like some rap songs. I mean, that's one, and the part in TLC is the only rap songs I like.
Do you have a favorite song of all time?
Favorite song. I don't have a favorite song. I like get a new one each month. Like, right now it's the Coolio song. Last month it was Waterfalls. Who knows what it'll be next month.
What do you like about Gangster's Paradise?
Exactly.
I don't know. I love the video, and I don't know. I just love the song. I think it's a really cool song.
Is it the music? Is it the voices?
The music. It's really neat. It's like it almost sounds like gospel music, you know. With the background is It's like they have this nice music in the background, and they're talking about all this like sad stuff, you know. It's a really cool song.
Have you seen Dangerous Minds?
No, I want to so bad. I can't believe I haven't seen it yet.
Well, the reason I ask that is, can you see yourself like a Michelle Pfeiffer sometime in the future?
Oh, I hope so.
Is that
actually my idol is Jodie Foster?
Why?
Because she's doing all the things that I like to do sometime. So when I grow up.
You like directing?
Yeah, and writing.
Do you write? I mean,
oh yeah.
Your own. What kinds of things do you write?
Oh, I started to write a script, but I can't finish it. It's hard writing a script because you want to do so much with it, but it's hard to put it all down on paper, all your thoughts. But I tried.
Oh, you don't have to give up yet.
That's true. I'm not gonna give up.
Is it pretty amazing now? Do you get inundated in just a lot of scripts like this, or do you have someone weed them out for you?
My agent and my manager usually reads them over, and they know what's good and bad, and all the things that have been good I've read, and I liked it a lot too.
Is there something you're working on now that we'll be seeing soon?
Excuse me. I did a cameo for Nick Nolte called Mother Night. It's a movie called Mother Night, and it's about World War II. And I did a documentary on the Holocaust for, and I did voiceovers for that. It was like they took all these pictures of what happened during the Holocaust, and they did voiceovers with all these people to do what they thought they were thinking, you know, in the pictures. And Keanu Reeves did it too, I think.
Did you learn quite a lot from that experience?
Actually, you know, I know a lot about the Holocaust. I mean, I've read so many books. My favorite book was Briar Rose by Jane Yolen. That's my favorite book. No one knows that book. I love that book so much. It's the best book. And I've read Anne Frank so many times. And we just did the play in school, Anne Frank. Well, not the play, but like we read the play.
And now on a production on a smaller scale like that, do you go for the juicy role? Do you go? I mean, what's your role?
I never go out for the school plays. Mm-mm.
Why not?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm in drum in school, but you know, it's kind of lame. But I don't know. I tried out for some of the parts, but you know, I don't do my best. I do bad jobs, but in school.
Did you ever want to get up there and say, "Teach, you know, that's a good point, but let me just tell you what it's like."
I'm never gonna do that because our principal's our drama teacher. So.
Well, it is kind of like a guy from, you know, who's been playing in the NFL coming back and running with his own. You've played you're in the show, you know, so there's not a whole lot for you to learn from doing high school. You're being very nice. You're not saying it, but that's what you're saying.
Are you in school here? That's here in California, or do you go back home to New Jersey?
In California.
Do you still have family back in New Jersey?
Yeah, I have my grandparents and my cousins and uncle and stuff like that.
Can you get away from being the movie actor and with people
in New Jersey? Yeah. Except, you know what's really weird? I was walking on the boardwalk. We always go to the boardwalk in the summer, and all these people had like a vampire t-shirt on, black. They were wearing black and everything. It was really weird. And they kept looking at me, and they're like, and then they go, "Oh my God, are you the vampire chick?" And I go, "Yeah." And then, because I hate when they call me that. Everyone calls me that. I don't know why. And so they couldn't believe it because I was in New Jersey, you know. So and no one would think at the boardwalk in New Jersey. So, and then I went to go see The Little Women with my grandpa and my grandma. And when everyone was coming out of the theater, they're looking at me like so strangely because they couldn't figure out if I was Amy or not. But no one bothered to ask because they knew it. Amy wouldn't come, you know, to New Jersey. So.
If you want, you can just send the mic right now. You guys can stop calling me Vampire Chick, and we'll get it out there for you.
You know what? I like it. I mean, that's my name, Vampire Chick. You know, so.
You said something funny though. You said that these people who I guess they were really living this whole vampire experience. Was that was kind of.
They were weird. I mean, like at the Anne Rice party, people were so dressed up. It was unbelievable. They'd have teeth made and everything, and. There was this one guy, and he lit a rose on fire. He's about to throw it at me, and the police go, what do you think you're doing? And he goes, "I just want to give her a flower." And people wanted to cut locks off my hair because I had it curled like Claudia, and they wanted to cut up my hair. It's really weird. There's some nutty people. And there's one, I think it was a guy who asked my mom how long she was in labor with me. It was the weirdest questions. I don't know why. They were so weird. But actually, they're very kind people, her followers. I mean, a lot of them are really nice people.
What do you think about the vampire hype? I mean, there have been so many movies. Eddie Murphy's got him out now. There's gonna be some, you know.
His is a comedy, though. You know, it's different.
Right, but I mean, either way,
it's kind of a spoof.
Everybody's into that
vampire
scene.
thing. Yeah, but I don't know. I did think Interview with the Vampire was different because Anne Rice put her whole heart and soul into it. And it was so different because it was kind of based on, you know, her daughter had died, and it was different because hers had a lot of love in it, you know, and it wasn't like, you know, The Vampire in Brooklyn, you know. That's because it's a comedy, but, you know, there might be a lot of vampire movies, but there's a lot of every movie, you know. There's so many movies about everything, like they're doing so many remakes and everything, so.
But there's not a lot of movies like Jumanji. And
No,
there
you
will
know,
never be.
I don't think there is. I mean, that's I've never even heard of a book like a movie like Jumanji. I think it's gonna be good.
And you know, Hollywood seems to be afraid to take chances sometimes. You know, I mean, were you aware of how difficult it was to kind of get this going? And
Yeah, but you know, I know it's gonna be a big hit. And you know what? Out of all the action movies I've seen, I think this has been like the best one, like out of Jurassic Park and everything, because you know, there's no killing, and you don't see anyone's head being shot off or anything like that, or being eaten up or anything. And even now, little kids can handle that stuff because kids have seen Mortal Kombat and stuff like that. So, and I think it's sweet because it's like an emotional too. And with Robin Williams, he's such a nice guy, and it comes through on the screen.
What's your favorite show on Fox Kids? Do you have X-Men?
You know what? Oh my God, I watched this cartoon called Sailor Moon. I love Sailor Moon. Have you heard of that? No one's heard of that. Only some people. Oh my God, that's my favorite cartoon is Sailor Moon. It's the coolest cartoon, but it's not on Fox. Wait, what cartoons are on Fox? I'm bad at TV things.
The Tick.
The Tick. Oh, Animaniacs. Do they have Animaniacs?
That's WB.
Oh, I love that.
I love it.
Batman,
Spider-Man, Batman. You know.
I like Batman.
You would probably like The Tick. You should check that out.
Yeah, I think I did. Isn't that big man with a small head? I don't think I've seen that yet.
Is Sailor Moon with the Japanese?
Sailor Moon's a Jap. Oh, I love this. This is the best cartoon in the world. It's like about these 4 girl superheroes. It's really cool.
Do you have a computer? Do you have a computer? Do you go online at all?
I have a computer, but it's not hooked up until we get the house. And we got this new house, and my mom put it all in storage now. So. Robin Williams bought me my computer. He bought me this whole set. I had like a wimpy little computer, and he bought me CD-ROM and everything. All these games.
Would you mind signing this for my wife? She's a really big fan of all the of Interview with the Vampire ones, particularly taking.
Oh, I hate this picture.
Well, unfortunately, we didn't have one of Claudia. I'm sorry.
Tim, who's
And it's Jumanji with Kirsten Dunst.
Flo, who's coming in here next?
The producer.
Oh, the producer.
Thank you.
We had the producer.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Kirsten.
I'm not sure.
Okay, we are back from the Kirsten Dunst interview. I wish you guys could actually listen to what Matt is saying between the segments. He is a very funny guy. You know,
I used to be a dunce. Now I'm a dunst.
That was not Matt, by the way. Matt's going to cut that out of the edit. Now, do you have any postscripts regarding Kirsten Dunst,
Well,
Matt?
first off, how cute was that Waterfalls rap?
Very cool.
I do remember I was programming the pop music countdown shows on the radio at the time, and I used that bit more than once as an intro to the TLC song.
Oh, wow.
And my guess is that Leo Quinones, who was the guy who asked her to do that, he probably used it too.
Yes.
Because if you remember, he worked for the Rick Dees Weekly Top 40 show at the time. Leo's a guy who sometimes goes by the name Leo Q. He calls himself the film freak. He's a good guy. You're going to hear him a lot on these archival tapes on the show. So shout out to Leo.
Shout out to Leo. He's actually a pretty good buddy of mine.
Good to know. Tell him I said hi.
Okay, I will.
Or, you know, I'm sure he listens to the show. So hi, Leo.
Hi, Leo.
Okay, so Kirsten said that her idol is Jodie Foster and that she hopes to work with her one day. As far as I can tell, comparing both of their credits, I don't think she's done it yet.
Nope.
So maybe someday. It is interesting. Way back when she was 13 years old, she was talking about wanting to write. And she said that she found it too hard. So, of course, that begs the question, did she ever try it again? And the answer is yes. She has written 2 short films, which were produced in 2007 and 2010. And IMDb lists a movie called The Bell Jar as being in pre-production, which she co-wrote and will direct. And apparently Dakota Fanning and Patricia Arquette are attached to star. So here's hoping that happens. Anything else you want to say about her, Greg?
Wow, I had no idea about the bell jar.
Well, now you do.
That is...
See, you learned something.
Yeah.
We're here to educate.
Wow.
But mostly each other. So that brings us to Robin Williams.
The star of the show?
I have quite a bit to say about him. Before I get to that, Greg, anything you want to say?
You know what? I will say this. I was not at the Jumanji interview. Like I said, I'll let you handle that. I did interview him in the movie Jack during the press junket for
Yep,
Jack.
I was there.
You were there too. Just he was always really genuinely nice to the fellow journalists and reporters at the press junket. And this, listeners, you're going to get a real up close look at how the rapport that Robin Williams had with the press.
Yes, and a lot of laugh out loud moments too. I do want to issue a language warning. He does swear a couple of times, so be aware of that. Now, I have quite a few notes here. I'll try to get through these quickly. Towards the end of the interview, he's going to talk a little bit about the direct-to-video Aladdin sequel, Aladdin and the King of Thieves. For those that don't remember the feud that went on between Robin Williams and Disney, it was very public and very ugly for a number of years. You probably remember this, Greg. What happened was, back in the days when the first Aladdin was made, voice actors didn't get paid very much. So Robin Williams was paid close to scale for that role, like the bare minimum that you can pay an actor. And this was when he was used to getting $8 million for a role. So he agreed to do this under two conditions. One, that they wouldn't use the genie prominently in the marketing of the film, and two, that they wouldn't use his voice in any of the trailers. And Disney broke both of those promises, which made Robin furious. So much so that he didn't work for Disney for years, turning down everything they offered him, including the Aladdin sequels. We even found out years later that the reason Billy Crystal turned down the role of Buzz Lightyear in Toy Story was because Robin Williams advised him not to work for Disney. So,
Wow.
Pixar wanted him for that role. He said no. And he has said later that was one of his big career regrets. Of course, Pixar then offered him Mike Wazowski later, so he did get to be in a Pixar movie. Two of them, actually, because there was a sequel. But he didn't get to be Buzz Lightyear. Anyway, so this feud between Robin Williams and Disney went on for quite a while. But then in 1994, Joe Roth took over as Disney's studio head, and he had a long relationship with Robin Williams, so he offered a public apology on behalf of the Disney studio, and Robin accepted it. And that led to him rejoining the Aladdin universe, and he voiced the role again in that direct-to-video sequel, which you will hear him talk about shortly. Interestingly, Dan Castellaneta, who voices Homer Simpson on The Simpsons, he had taken over the role of the genie, and he had actually recorded the entire part for this movie, Aladdin and the King of Thieves, and when Disney found out they could get Robin Williams back, they threw out all of Dan Castellaneta's tracks and had Robin re-record those lines.
Oh, wow.
And Castellaneta apparently was not very happy about that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So we have already explained in other episodes about how we were never allowed to make noise during interviews, and I mentioned it before the Bonnie Hunt interview too. But just as a quick recap, we couldn't say, yeah, that kind of stuff. We couldn't do that when they were talking because it would ruin the soundbite and then no one could use it. So it was the same thing with laughing out loud. We just couldn't do it. And by far, the greatest challenge we ever dealt with to adhering to this rule was every time we ever interviewed Robin Williams. He was arguably one of the funniest people alive, and when he's sitting across from you and he's being manic and random and hilarious and he's making eye contact with you and he's trying his best to make you laugh, keeping that noise in could be torturous. And the other part of that was we would feel guilty about it with him. It felt like we were being rude because guys like that live for the reaction, here we were denying it, and it made them feel like the jokes weren't landing and that they were bombing. So we would always smile or we'd mimic laughter in silence, trying to convey that we were enjoying it and we did find it funny, we just couldn't vocalize it. And also we would explain the rules to the comedians when they first came in so that they would at least understand why it was happening. Anyway, by the time of this Jumanji junket, many of us had already interviewed Robin several times, so we knew what we were in for. And I specifically remember sitting in that San Francisco hotel room during our 5-minute downtime before Robin was coming in, and we were all reminding each other, okay, everyone, remember, we can't make any noise. And to give credit where it's due, it was Kathy Kogan who came up with the idea of, hey, why don't we make some signs that we can all hold up instead of laughing out loud? And we all thought that was pretty clever. So somebody had a pad of paper with them, and we each took a sheet and we wrote down different things. Somebody wrote, that's a good one. Somebody else wrote, that's so funny. I can't remember exactly, but it was all stuff like that. I definitely remember somebody wrote, I'm about to pee my pants. That is one that stuck with me. So anyway, we put our signs face down in front of us so that the words were hidden, and we decided that we were going to wait until the first time Robin said something really funny, and then we would all hold them up at the same time. So that's what we did. And you're not going to have to wait long. It happens about 45 seconds into the interview. And what you're going to hear is, out of nowhere, he just starts laughing his head off. And, if you hadn't heard my explanation, you wouldn't know why, but now you have, so you will. And then he starts making jokes about it. And it was just a really great moment. I don't think any of us ever used that section of the interview for anything, because, how could you? It doesn't promote the movie or whatever. It was kind of just for us.
Right.
It was our own special moment. And when the roundtable interview was over, Robin asked if he could keep the signs, so we all handed them over to him. And what's really cool is he always remembered it, and he always remembered us. The joke endeared us to him so much that even years later, every time we interviewed him for a different movie, the minute he walked into the room, he would recognize those of us who had been a part of the Jumanji signs group, and he would walk straight over to us and smile, say hello, and then make some kind of comment about how great those signs had been.
I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah. It was just a silly little thing, but it kind of bonded us all together with him, So,
That
anyway.
was such a genuine laugh, too. When you listen to that laugh, listeners, at 46 seconds into it, very genuine laugh.
Yeah, and it was nice for us, too, because, this is a guy who's brought so much joy to so many people, and, we got to do that for him.
Right.
And
Wow.
I don't know if a lot of people can say that who weren't necessarily friends with him or whatever, so we felt really good about that, and I'm pretty sure I'm safe in saying that this is the first time that anyone outside of that room has ever heard this part of this interview. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy it.
Well, without further ado, here is Robin Williams.
Would it be kidney stones? We'll be right back. Specimens of the rich and famous. This week, celebrity stools. Sorry.
We wanted to just warn you that we're radio, and so even though you're a very funny person,
now we know the rules.
We cannot
we're gonna
laugh
try
out
to
loud.
keep laughing out loud.
Oh, so it'll be like,
So please don't hold back on the humor. Yes.
don't hurt me.
But know we're laughing.
I hope the fight goes well. No, this is amazing. I haven't seen this many. Oh, look at these. There's microphone envy all over the place.
Are you now?
Are you now? Yeah. I've never been a member. Senator Norway. Mr. Helms, could you let go of your genitals for a moment? Sorry. Oops, sorry, we're ready. Okay. Junket syndrome. Please help. If you have a tendency to sit around a round table for a long period, please help. The United Junket Foundation. We've been in a small room too long. Help us. Junket syndrome. Hello, I'm Robin Williams for the National Junket Foundation. Okay, we're ready. I've been on a junket for a while. Okay, yeah. Oops, too much to drink? Other than that, Mr. Yeltsin, did you like the movie? For me, a great movie. Ah, yes, W.C. Yeltsin. Ah, yes. The Iron Curtain is a drape.
Robin, are you always this upbeat and entertaining?
After 25 cups of coffee, I'm checking into the Betty Ford Hospital, the Folgers wing.
Before we get to Jumanji, we're doing a special on the Beatles reunion. Remember the first time you heard the Beatles, what the song was, what you felt?
Oh, God. I remember Sgt. Pepper's buying that record. That was... And, been playing it forwards and going... Paul is... I think, boy, it'll be wild because they're doing the digital remix. Oh, that'll be amazing. That's where it's, getting all back. And knowing Ringo. I think it'll be quite extraordinary to hear new songs. It'll be wonderful. I remember, because it was 1969, I think it was, 68 or 69. It was a lot of medication, man. The walls were melting. I was Lucy. And I was in the sky with pearls. That's the Jewish version. Lucy in the sky with pearls. Hello. Okay, we're back.
We were talking to the producers about how long it took to get this made,
Mm-hmm.
to get Jumanji to the screen. When did you come into the project?
Today, now that it's finished. They kept sending me drafts, and it was an interesting idea, but I kept just wanted to see more of a story. Then I think they had one that finally started to work, and I said, no, I think it's interesting. It took a long time. They had about, I don't know how many drafts they are. When you start getting, 12th draft. And they go through, when you're shooting a movie, they change the color of the pages. Puce, salmon, the teal draft. But it took a long time to, for me to commit. I kept saying, please, there's other people, You can find other people. There'll be people who look great in leather. But not me, the little furry boy. People, when the monkeys are on stage, they'll be torn who to look at. So it took a while.
Had you read the book to your kids? Were you familiar with the original?
Yeah, I was familiar with that with my daughter.
Because I think that's an interesting leap. I mean, to take something so simple and
Yeah, it is. One might say a leap of cash. To take it, like you said, it is I mean, could they have made the book just directly into a movie? Yeah, it'd be very small and very sweet and scary in its own way. But I guess they just, they want to kick it out and make it, a larger expanse. And I guess by having an adult in it, too, as one of the main characters, there could be more jeopardy and not as scary for children, I think, because there's, at least, there's kind of a safety net.
But he's an adult who is still very much like a little boy.
Well, emotionally, if you go away when you're 12, he hasn't had a lot of contact with people, so he doesn't have a lot of chops that way. So people say, why couldn't you improvise a lot? Because essentially I should have come back like Nell, Blonde and the babe, not know how to sing, the monkey flying. But it would have been a different movie. It would take half the movie to go, coffee, fun, good. What's he saying? Or be like Stallone. I'm the law. What? You're the law? Law. You're the law. Law. Okay. Second line. I'm just dead. Judge dead. Dead. Dreb. Sorry. But he doesn't have all the chops, and he comes back kind of ill-equipped to deal with people, and then that's part of, working with them and being around them, picking that up again. And remembering, being among others.
But it is interesting because, we always expect when a Robin Williams movie that you're just huge and you are the attraction. And in this film, there's special effects as well as you, and it's a more muted character. But I didn't really think about that until later. I mean, is that maybe...
It hit you on the way home. You went, the furry boy was quiet.
What was the furry boy doing?
What was the furry boy doing among all the effects? The virtual reality, as it were. I wanted to do, because it is a character, because it isn't manic, because it isn't, it's just a chance to really act among all this stuff, to have that kind of human factor among all the effects. Because in the end, what draws you through the story, the effects are interesting, but if the story doesn't work for you, you'll be like when you're reading a story as a child. If the characters don't connect to you, you'll just be looking at, the monkey looks kind of real, You have to have a certain jeopardy and a certain emotion to carry you into the fear of it and to carry you into the adventure. And if that works, then the adventure works. Someone asked about have your children seen The Wizard of Oz? And I said, yeah, it still works for them. And you think in terms of effects, it's because the story is so wonderful and so it talks about, fear and heart and, all those amazing, I would while away the hours. Playing with the flowers, cavorting with the bees. I would have no malice if I only had a phallus. No, it's the updated version. We can do it again. The Wizard of Oz.
This is the hairiest Robin Williams we've seen since The Fisher King.
Yes, sir.
And
I've actually had I got a videotape the other day from Coco. It was like it was a gentle offer. I like you. Kitty is enough, but I like you. They actually sent her tapes among 3 alpha males, 1 silverback, 1 me. I won. It's Marlon Perkins' dating game. I'll take the furry boy in the middle, Bob. If we were on a date, would you groom me?
I swear to God, you had a jungle prance. Did you work on that?
Yeah, there was a kind of a... you're trying to do... What research do you do for a guy being away for, 27 years in this place is... I watched a couple of movies about basically Amazon tribes, and that there's a way you move where it's also when you have those type of, when you're not in regular shoes, that you have a kind of way you move that's very nimble. And he's been in this place where he's basically trying to survive for so long. He has a way of kind of, skittery, to be blunt. Almost, it is like a monkey movement, it's almost simian. And it wasn't that big a stretch. And take the mask off now, Cole. Did it go well? So, you have a question coming?
Yeah, this was the most action that you've done in it.
Yeah, it'll be probably the most I ever do. I mean, I don't think I'll ever do like a shoot-'em-up action movie. I can't. Those guns are just too big.
Tell us about wrestling the alligator.
The alligator it was a frightening thing because it's a mechanical thing that can actually hurt you. Because if you get caught in the middle, you can lose your fingers. And one day I was wrestling and I pounded on it, and from inside I heard, "Oh!" So there's a guy in there. There's a guy in the lion, you know, and he wasn't really in as much as within. Like, come on now, you're real pretty. I'll find you attractive, my little luggage. Come on now. It ain't all teeth. This week on Wild Kingdom, my assistant will attempt to nail an alligator. It was always strange to be doing the animatronics because you'd see the lion there, and then you'd see 12 guys going like, damn it. And they'd have, you know, sometimes something would get stuck and the lion would turn into Elvis, you know, Priscilla, little me. And you'd have to kind of, you know, suspend disbelief and keep going. That's always surreal. I mean, doing this movie with all these special effects, you have to imagine and visualize. I'll show you a picture and say, this is what you're looking at. Oh, great, okay. And then you have to, you know, try and give it some sort of, you know, danger or a reality. And it usually involves hallucinating it or trying to visualize it. Bob Hoskins told a great story about doing Roger Rabbit. After he finished, he'd done it for a year. He said he was in a bank one day. He looked up, and a lady was standing in front of him, and there was a weasel going like this in the lady's ear. He went, I've got to quit. I can't do any more special effects. It's too fucking strange. Oops, we violated already. Pull that one out. But he said that that was the, you know, it's a really strange thing to do. But the thing that makes it, you can get through it is by focusing on the people. I mean, working with Bonnie was great because we would just play. We would have the scenes do, but then afterwards we'd become the two people from Chicago, you know. Them folks, you know, Bonnie, gotta go down and get you a couple of pack of buds, you know, that's all right. You know, just have a nice beer afterwards looking at the you know, the surrealistic animals and stuff, but, you know, that was all part of it. Because it wouldn't be nice to see it in, you know, a jungle adventure movie where it's not someone who's very much talking like this and someone going, oh, look at that big guy. Whoa! Look at the paws on that sucker, I'll tell you, my friend. This week on Mild Kingdom, we'll attempt to wrestle a bud out of my wife's hand.
But there were situations where you did not have to do the imagination and the alligator.
Yeah, the crocodile.
Was
one of them.
Also,
they have the little web thing. Yeah.
The monsoon scene we were talking about. Just, I mean, being in the water for so long.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable, and you're like, you know. And the one time they have that scene where the flood comes down the stairs. We had to do that, and at one point they flooded. And somehow they changed the dynamic, and the water washed down the still cameraman. And smile, I got it! You know, you look down and you see, oh, there's a guy. Wow, this is really a trip. Seems to be going well. Hey, Keanu. But you know, we were like, it was, like you said, there was an element of danger in that. And they said, what happens if a light falls in? Okay, let's eat. Okay, you can read by your genitals. But it's okay, really. There's a little bit of that, and you know they're flooding and they're doing, you know, they've got to keep a certain level of, you know, water in, and then when they're flushing the thing out, there's a little danger, but most of the time it's, you know, pretty mild stuff.
And you're in the floor. I mean, that looked pretty tight.
Oh, it was. That was, you know, all of a sudden look, it's a makeover. I'm Nancy. Hello, designer jeans. Now you realize all those bad facelifts. I must talk to the doctor. That was uncomfortable. That truly was not fun. That was, you know, not a good day.
Being stuck in the floor.
Yeah. What are you doing? Yeah.
Mr. Williams, David Alan Grier was talking about how he admires the vast breadth of your work or whatever, and the different roles that you play. Are you as impressed or happy with what you've done and the kinds of things that you've done?
I mean, I'm just so... it is a great thing to have that I've been given the chance to play all those different things. That's wonderful. If I could still have that chance, yeah, it'd be great. To try something like Awakenings, and then to try something like this, and then to do something like The Birdcage, which is a remake of Cajafo, or to do a small part in a movie like The Secret Agent, Conrad's The Secret Agent, which is a flat-out horrific character. That's wonderful. So I don't have to play one particular type of person. I always want to try and just keep changing, because it's, you know, it's a great thing to have the freedom to do that. Plus it also helps, you know, just gives you more latitude of what you can do, so you don't get pegged in one thing. So if one thing doesn't work, you can always say, well, he's not really a comedian, but I'm an actor. No, he's not really an actor, he's a comedian. No, he's not really either, he's a simian. Yes, Darwin was wrong. that you can do both. And if I can have that, I mean, it comes from going to Juilliard with, you know, that I had the training to act, and it's that desire to sometimes go back and try something, you know, a dramatic piece, or what someone would say in brief, serious, or as much for me is just to find these different characters.
How hard is it to sell yourself or be sold for the Awakenings role? Because that's really what kind of...
They came to me, and I don't know, I mean, why, because I think, I don't know who they wanted originally, or, you know, you never know who passed. Marlon Brando.
Let's just go out and eat, see what happens. He took the drugs, I remember the third day.
It was, as Penny came, she called up, Robin, hi. Is this Gary? No, it's Penny. And they offered the part. And after I read it, I went, this is quite wonderful. And then when I met Oliver, then I was very excited, because he's an extraordinary man. And the chance to play him or someone like him, because it's not really him. We changed that halfway through. It was just an exciting thing. You know, and I don't know why they offered it to me. Maybe because, you know, in the end, you know, studios offer you movies, and you think, because I'm a great actor. Yes. And the fact that your movie made a big shitload of cash. That helps to give you a certain, you know, to say they give you a chance to take, you know, to try a dramatic part. You know, with Jim Carrey now, they're offering, he wants to do a dramatic part, and I'm sure they're sending them because, you know, he's done these movies, and now he wants to try something else, which is great to do, to break, to go the other way. And to have that chance is really wonderful.
But in a way, is comedy something of a shadow hanging over you? People say, okay, we got a funny role for Robin Williams.
Yeah, they send it, it's not a shadow, it's what I love, you know, I love doing it. And you have to choose to see if, like example, in The Birdcage, it's I don't play the drag role, and everyone thought, initially the publicity came out saying I'll be in drag again. And you can only say, how many times can you wear teddies and say you don't enjoy it? But it's that idea of playing something different, to play the you know, the more reactive character, the kind of the quieter, you know. But it's a great dynamic to have when you can find out that you can work another type of comedy and not be manic, like you said, or to be, people just expect I'm going to crawl up the walls. And even though I'm hanging from the ceiling right now and this is radio, we're having fun anyway. And now I'm going to do some mime just to piss people off. Okay. But I think I like to try different things that way in terms of even comedy. And to try and find character comedy like The Fisher King, which is funny and deeply sad. That's a great thing. If you can find that, we can find something that's hysterically funny and yet still very touching. That's a great line to walk, where you're jumping back and forth, you know, within the same character. And not out of character. I mean, sometimes they get busted. I think they come after me sometimes for saying, well, he's just doing voices. And I know that a lot of times I used to get a lot of scripts where he does his voices here, which is like, oh, you know, it's like some sort of, you know, ventriloquist thing.
Hi, talking to Tommy.
Rosa, would you like to tell the courtroom?
Yes.
Okay. He's for you. What did you see?
I saw.
Okay, so. Is he Bronco?
Bronco.
Okay.
How about stand-up? You still doing that?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I go on either to prepare for different things. You know, I got comic relief next week, so I'll probably go out and, you know, perform. It's nice, I'll go on last. I'll go on in a club late, you know, which is fun. It's not always fun. I mean, there's been some awful times where people look at you like, you suck. And that's my agent, but, you know.
But you obviously still don't have to do that. What do you get?
No, I don't have to, but I love doing it. It is therapy. It is a weird combination of therapy, and it's something it's a whole other dimension, because it's no boundaries. And in the good sense and in the bad sense, because sometimes you can either be, you know, say something so tasteless or something that, but that's part of how your mind works, you know. In the process of trying things, you'll go too far, or you'll hit something and it'll be like, you know, you'll find a vein and just go with it. But it's still fun. I love it. I mean, clubs are always a mixed bag, because, you know, the later you go on, the more hammered people are, you know, and. But nice thing here is people go to see comedy now. They're really out because they want to see comedy. You know, people say, is comedy dying? And, you know, I think George Carlin said, no, I think I saw it on the Santa Monica Freeway. But it's you know, it comes in waves. And people who go now to clubs really go because they really still want to see what people are doing. And it's nice.
But you've also used your comedy for good, not just your comedy, but your position in...
Comedy for good. During the day, premise man. Dun, 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 dun.
I'm comedy man.
Yes. Still capable of a penis joke. Dun, dun, dun. In the middle of a Shakespearean reference. Oh, gentle Testy.
Now that's skill.
Yeah, I saw you looking like, we have nothing. I have nothing to use. This is radio. We have nothing. But I still use it. Yeah, you can still use it politically. You can still talk about, Uncle Bob Dole and,
And obviously
family value movies like True Lies. True Lies, it's a I remember when I got the list.
obviously comic relief.
Yeah, I mean, we're still doing it. The sad thing is that we have to. And the problem is much worse. That if you look in any major city, or not even major cities, every city, that, as the programs are cut back, that the need becomes greater. And it's very strange because all we raise money for is medical aid, literally supplies, to all these little places that are kind of like little outposts of people still applying medical services to homeless people, which is, living on the street is not exactly the most sanitary conditions, and things like tuberculosis are back, which impacts not just them, but if a really prophylactic resistant strain of tuberculosis exists, it becomes an epidemic. But now I didn't even know we used the word prophylactic resistant today. Resistant to prophylaxis, which is different. Resistant to prophylactic is a very large man.
Thank you very
But that's, thanks.
Yeah,
you can answer.
One more question. You're going to be reprising your voiceover as the...
I did it already.
You've done it?
Yeah, it was a blast.
So when is it supposed to... It's straight to video and it's coming out when?
It comes out in March, I think. They drew a lot of the stuff, and then they were just waiting for me, and then when everything worked out, that they came up here and recorded it in a small studio. Oh man, it was fun. It was the reason I did the first one too. It's just such fun to just kick out, and knowing that they are such great animators. And I think they love the privilege of not having to be bound by the mouse anymore. Oh, great! I've got my frontal lobe back, and Minnie has some more fingers. It's okay, everybody. Please don't touch yourself. I can't. I've only got 3 fingers. What can you do? Help me. Oh, whoa. That would be the X-rated Disney movie. Ow.
So you and Disney are hand in hand again?
Hand in hand with a 3-fingered glove. Hand in hand, me and Dopey, we're back. No, they just apologized, which I thought was a mensch thing to do, which is a nice thing after all those times. And then we're back, and then we're, still as a project-to-project basis, but at least it's nice to be, civil again. It's weird to have, it's like when a relationship breaks up. It's like, who gets the rights to the lamp? So you have to see what happens.
We had a chance to talk to Christopher Hampton the other day, and he mentioned, the secret agent.
Was he talking about Eclipse, or was he?
Well, no, it was the Carrington. Have you seen that?
No.
Powerful, beautifully done piece.
Oh, great.
And it really gives you a sense of why.
He's a great director too. I mean, it's wonderful to work with an English director like him because he's very elegant, and it's almost a way. If something doesn't work, he'll say, "That was very good in many ways," and you go, "Oh." So really, yes, it was a bit not, I wouldn't say awful, but uniquely bad. And you go, "Oh, great, all right, good." So he'll just, he's very precise because as being a playwright for all those years, you trust the stuff that he writes. It's just so down to the punctuation does have a meaning. I mean, you don't. People say, "Did you improvise?" No need. I mean, it was all. Playing the character, the professor, was such a hideous character because in the end, Conrad wrote a precursor basically to, almost the Holocaust, and a character who said that the destruction of the weak, soon individuals as well as governments will realize this. And you're reading this and it reads like, Goebbels, but it's this English. They actually in the book imply that he's an American, former. Almost religious. His father was religious and a chemist, and it's really brutally depressing stuff, and it's testing well. It's like
thank you.
It's like thanks.
Play somebody who's got that.
It's wonderful when the cards went up. Stop!
Don't hurt me. Always remember this one room. This
Junkenheimer's.
The cue cards.
Kirsten said that you set her up with a computer.
Yeah, with I'm the computer pimp.
Would you mind signing that for my wife?
I did software for Steven.
I'm sorry, we don't have time for any more.
Do you go online yourself?
I'm coming. I'll just sign these real quick.
Yeah, there's one under there.
Do you spend any time online yourself?
Oh yeah, a lot. More on the web, kind of wandering the web, which is more fascinating. When you do that one thing in the University of Kansas, where it spins you off and you end up in a paraplegic leather bar, What is that? There are so many websites that it's just like...
I think that's the last.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, and I think that's the incredible part, but you
I'm
never
sorry,
know where
this
you're
is
going
the
to
last
wind up. And
I'll just sign the name. You better put the name on because I think they'll drag me out by my hair.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
You had a great time.
Yeah.
I looked over at you occasionally like...
Who's looking at you?
Yeah. You kid. God bless you.
There we go.
Yeah, thank you. Take these now. Thank you.
And he's on the next group.
Stop, I'm about to pee my pants.
That was mine.
Yeah.
I just remember.
Help me, I'm coming.
Thank you very much.
Oh wait, Robin, here's mine.
Oh, thanks.
Looking like a maniac inside.
Yeah, please, yeah, I really am.
You can pass these out at Comic Relief, have the audience show it.
That was too cool. That was too cool.
Man, I miss that guy. Listening to this interview, it makes me both happy and sad at the same time. He was always really nice to us and consistently hilarious, and there really will never be anyone like him again.
No, not even close. I'm jealous. I wish I was actually at that table. That would have been really cool. I remember listening to that tape driving up Sepulveda Boulevard, folks. It's a
This was recently preparing for this show?
No, this was actually during, because like you, I had to actually cut tape and give the sound bites, the ins and outs to my engineer at the time.
Okay, so you weren't there, but you got a copy.
I had the actual copy of the tape, and
so
I was listening.
Somebody dubbed it for you.
Someone dubbed it for me, and I remember listening to that opening interview for Jumanji with Robin Williams, and you guys surprising him, and that just threw me for a loop. I remember actually...
Did you know the story? Did you understand why he was laughing?
Yeah. I forgot. Maybe you told me the story or someone else did,
Okay.
but after learning about the story, then I remember exactly. I was on Sepulveda. I was actually going to enter the freeway, and I heard Robin Williams' laugh, and I just remember that moment in time. I go, wow, this is going to be a moment, even though I wasn't even there, I'm going to remember this moment for the rest of my life. And then after that, I remember even listening to the Kirsten Dunst interview with the Waterfalls rap. So this actually, even though I wasn't part of this experience, I remember the first time I actually listened to these tapes, and they were very memorable.
Well, and now everyone listening to the show shares that with you.
I hope so, yeah.
I do have one postscript here. So right at the end, he talked about doing something for Christopher Hampton, who is a playwright. He's most famous for Les Liaisons Dangereuses. That's what it was known as in the theater. And for the movie, it was called Dangerous Liaisons. It was a film with Glenn Close, John Malkovich, and Michelle Pfeiffer. Anyway, the film that Robin Williams was talking about was called The Secret Agent, and he played an uncredited role as an assassin.
Very cool.
We will try to play more Robin Williams in future episodes. You know, The Birdcage was a really fun one.
Oh, I was not there. Oh,
you weren't there?
That was good as well. Oh,
yeah, a lot of good people. So we'll try to program that in. So what do we have on our next episode? Do you know?
Yeah, we're going to have a really big episode. We're covering Apollo 13.
No, we did that one already.
What about Fargo?
Yeah, that's half of it.
I would like, what would be great if we did something like The Big Lebowski too, or something like that.
Good idea.
What is
Let's
that the
do
next
that.
Really?
Yep.
So what's our next show, Matt?
Our next episode, it's going to be a big Cohen-a-thon. We're going to combine Fargo and The Big Lebowski.
Very cool.
So I think it just remains for us. I think that's my plane. I have to go catch a ride, folks.
Okay, well, as Matt is catching the plane, stay tuned for the next episode.
And our plugs.
And our plugs. What's our plugs? mattandgregpodcast.com. Please go to that website.
That is the webpage. And our Facebook is facebook.com/MattandGreg.
Yes, and check out our YouTube channel as well, which is going to be on the websites and everything like that.
All that stuff. So many places to find us.
So many places to find us. Please, again, your attention, your feedback is definitely welcome and warranted, and we love it.
And
please,
word of mouth. Please spread the word. If you like the show, tell your friends about it. I mean, we don't have any kind of advertising budget or anything like that, so we kind of rely on that. Please let people know about us.
Yes, and especially with next episode, it's going to be a Cohen fest with Fargo and The Big Lebowski. By the way, the dude abides. Until then.
We now return you to your regularly scheduled lives.